Recording in progress.
I'm going to start the meeting. Welcome to our last meeting of the year, December 13th, 2023, regular meeting of the Midcoast Community Council. Could our outgoing secretary please call the roll and related issues?
Okay, Greg,
Here.
Gus,
Here.
Ann. I see you. Let's see, you're here.
Here.
Claire?
Here.
Kimberly, I see you.
Here.
Yeah. And I'm here, and then Dan.
Here.
All right. So now let's vote on Ann and Kimberly remote voting.
Right. We have to approve their ability to vote by attending remotely.
Do we vote on that or just?
We do vote on that.
Okay, so, okay, so
In favor of allowing Ann and Kimberly to remote vote, I move that they be allowed to have a second.
okay.
Second, okay. Call for a vote.
All right, Greg,
Yes.
Gus?
Yes.
Claire?
Yes.
I say yes, and Dan?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so that completed. Our normal agenda begins with Board of Supervisors report and reports from other government officials. And with us today, we have Adam Eli of the county, I believe, Department of Emergency Management. But Adam, could you just introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hello, everybody. It's nice to meet you. My name is Adam Ely. I'm a deputy county executive in San Mateo County. I do have within my portfolio of responsibilities the Department of Emergency Management, and I work with the director, Dr. Shruti Dapdolkar. I also have the criminal justice portfolio, which means that I work with the sheriff's office, probation, the district attorney, a number of other agencies, including the courts that are involved in criminal justice. I'm pleased to meet everybody. In terms of general report outs, let me know what the tradition is. I can provide a little bit of information on some recent developments in the county that might be of interest, or you guys may already be up to speed on most of those through county missives and press releases, and I don't need to do that. Sort of.
I don't see Mike O'Neill here. Normally there's a short written report announcing things like vaccination centers and fairs, job.
The Board of Supervisors report.
Board of Supervisors report. If there isn't one, that's fine. If you want to apprise us of a couple of things you think are of relevance to the MCC, I welcome that.
Great, thank you. One item that certainly made the newspaper, and Supervisor Mueller led the charge along with Supervisor Pine, was the establishment of the county's Office of Labor Standards and Enforcement. This is an office that will at first provide education and outreach to folks who may be potentially exploited through non-payment of appropriate wages or non-payment of overtime or appropriate benefits. It's the intention of the county to establish that office by July 1st of next year, and potentially move into some enforcement of these issues. That was adopted at our last board meeting and was very interesting. One of the other things that I think this group may be interested in is that Supervisor Mueller announced this as well at a previous board meeting, but following the tragic drownings on the coast on November 26th, Supervisor Mueller, the sheriff, CAL FIRE, and other folks, emergency management services, are going to be taking another look at what can be done to improve beach safety. I know in the wake of the death of Aruni Pruthi in 2021, there were some measures taken to improve that. And, there's certainly the latest tragedy indicates that potentially more could be done. So the county is going to be taking a close look at that. In addition, at the last board meeting, the sheriff also adopted and approved the establishment of a sheriff advisory commission, which will also start work potentially July 1st, 2024, and provide input and community feedback to the sheriff's office. Those are some of the highlights from the more recent board meetings.
So Adam, I hate to baptize you by fire, but we allow public comment and questions on reports from government officials. And I see we have two people who want to ask questions. So here goes. Sid Young, you had a question?
Hi, Adam. I missed your introduction. Are you, did you say deputy, county manager, like under, Mike Callaghy?
Yes, that's correct. Although
Okay.
they now call it county executive, but yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah,
And,
so-
so since Ray's not here and his representative's not here, maybe we can ask you, I was reading that the, oh, I forget what they call themselves, that they just gave a lot of money. San Mateo County gave a lot of money to, I think, the Transportation Authority to improve highway stuff. And there wasn't anything mentioned in the article that I read about Highway 1. And as you may or may not have heard, but last week, thank you to SMC Alert, there were 2 alerts that went out almost simultaneously during rush hour or late afternoon about Highway 1 closure due to an accident, and almost simultaneously a head-on collision on Highway 92. And neither of the 2 SMC alerts ever gave us an update of when they reopened either of the roads. And we're trapped out here when both roads are closed. So, you know, we've been asking Mike O'Neill for help get us some better, I guess you would call it, highway updates through Caltrans. Because yes, he gave me the link of where to send in a complaint to Caltrans by email, but I mean, you guys are the county. I think you would be able to give a little more pressure than like an individual constituent. And like right along Surfers Beach, there's 2 big chunks of pavement, and they've just put out orange cones. It's been that way since the storm of last January. So those kind of issues. Is there anybody in the county? I mean, we haven't had much luck with Mike O'Neill doing anything for us, but is there any way that somebody could reach out to the people that put out the SMC alerts to say, once you put out the alert, the road is closed, can you please follow up and say when it's reopened, that sort of thing? And also following up on some of the maintenance issues that are like dragging. They put in, here's another example, they put in the new Murata Murata Bridge, and the Caltrans orange K rails are still up where they put the detour. And I think the ribbon cutting was in November for that bridge, but they still have K rail up on Highway 1, that sort of thing. Is that something you can do, or would you refer us out to somebody else?
So typically, well, I guess, Chair, you indicate that you do allow kind of sort of question and response on.
Yes, we do.
Okay. I can respond just briefly on the SMC alerts. And I think, as you're aware, the county is not the sole group that can issue these alerts, but we certainly can reach out to the other entities that have the ability to issue them, to provide suggestions. It sounds like you provided a very reasonable one, that if a road is alerted to be closed, it would be reasonable to follow up and say that it's open. So we can do that if you would, sort of send me an email providing me some of that information. We can make sure it reaches the appropriate folks. In terms of other issues about Caltrans performance with, some of their equipment being left behind, it's likely that I would just refer you to Caltrans, because I don't have responsibility or really the connection with them to make sure that that issue is addressed. If it lingers sort of eternally, we can reach out and try to help move the needle. But it would primarily be through referring to Caltrans.
Okay. All right.
Who's the we that you think could reach out?
I mean, the county does have relationships and contacts with Caltrans because we intersect with them in our work. But typically we wouldn't be the repository for complaints regarding Caltrans activities. So it would normally go through Caltrans.
I guess it's mostly.
Okay, thanks.
Point of information, just want to make a quick announcement. So, Adam, I just want to let you know that on our end, your voice is very low. And then, Sid, your mic is consistently very, very high. So if you can, I don't know, try to do some adjustment to help us. Because what I have to do is I have to turn the volume way down for Sid and then way up for Eli. Sorry for that bother, but
Yeah,
I'll try to make the future meetings run a little better.
we did have a comment in the chat that they couldn't hear Adam. Fran, you had a question for Adam? Fran
Hi,
Pollard?
yeah, I was gonna say the same thing that Dan just said. I didn't hear most of what Adam had to say. Either turn up your microphone as far as possible. Everyone else is coming in loud and clear, and he's practically whispering, it sounds like. So I didn't
I
get
had a-
any of
Okay, let me know if that helps. I had-
Much better. There we
Great.
go.
and
I had
that's
a-
good. Let me just add that if everyone that's up there speaks into their microphones, because often the softest voices sit back and we can't pick up what you're saying. So just remember that. Try and speak
Good
into the
feedback.
microphone.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you, Fran. All right, do the council have any questions for Adam?
I could ask.
Scott? Treasurer?
So establishment of county labor enforcement, is that what you said it was? Adam?
Yeah, the County Office of Labor Standards and Enforcement, which is will be a new department, a new office within the county starting July 1st.
And then you mentioned beach safety improvements, and what was the last point you said after beach safety? You mentioned
The
Is it-
other thing that occurred at the last board meeting was that the county adopted a resolution creating a sheriff's advisory commission,
okay, got it.
and that will similarly start July 1st, 2024.
Quick question.
Claire has a question.
I don't know if you know this, but the bone of contention with that sheriff's advisory thing was whether or not the group would have subpoena power. Do you know how that was resolved?
The Board of Supervisors retained the subpoena power.
Okay, thank you.
Adam, thanks for taking the time to be here tonight. I'm sure you'll find our meetings a little bit Wild West compared to others that you may participate in. But we treasure the open dialogue, sometimes too much of it. So Nick Calderon, you're here as a government official. Would you like to make a report?
Yeah, Greg, happy to, and thank you for allowing me to speak. So I wanted just to announce that on January 31st of next year, we will be hosting a San Mateo County Parks Integrated Pest Management Program, or IPM forum. And so our IPM, just so everyone knows, is an ecosystem and science-based strategy that focuses on a prevention of pests or their damage through a combination of techniques such as biological control, habitat manipulation, modification of cultural practices, and use of resistant variants, and so varieties. And so we will go into what that means in greater detail, but this is really coming from the conversation that occurred at the Midcoast Community Council in October regarding herbicide use. And so kind of just to cover a few things, and I know that this was discussed at length at your last meeting, so I wanted just to kind of cover a few things that were brought up at that meeting and make sure that I'm able to provide additional details, but also clarify the record in areas where I feel like maybe things were maybe misstated or misrepresented. So, and I thought Greg did a good job. So we announcing this at the beginning, we proposed originally January 24th. And the reason we did that is because we actually wanted to make it easier for members of the Midcoast Community Council to participate. This was not intended as a way to insult or discourage members of the MCC. We know that it's hard to attend nighttime events, and so we felt that if we scheduled it on a night that the MCC members already had it on their calendar, it would just make it easier. I think that was kind of backfired a little bit and was received differently. That certainly was not how it was intended, so I do apologize for that. Again, for us, we were just trying to make it easier for members of the MCC to participate. But I did get the question of why not just do this at the MCC, at a regularly scheduled MCC meeting. And the reason really is because, as you undoubtedly have seen on your agenda tonight, based on that ask letter, the ask is a San Mateo County-wide impact, right? So the ask is not just about parks on the Midcoast, it's about parks throughout the San Mateo County Park system. And therefore, we really think the forum needs to be open for residents throughout the county, not just in one subset of the county. And so there are individuals who are very passionate in other parts of the county as they are on the Midcoast, in the North County for San Bruno Mountain, in the central part of the county at Edgewood. And so we really think that if we want to be transparent and inclusive in this dialogue, that we need to create a forum that is open to everyone. And so that's why we're structuring the forum the way we are. And so this will be an opportunity for park staff to explain what our integrated pest management program is, what our thought process is when we go through an analysis for a project, the different types of treatment approaches we use. And so it's really designed to be a information sharing and education conversation. This was something also that we felt needed to be scheduled after the Resource Conservation District, or RCD, canceled their scheduled event. So some of you may recall the RCD was supposed to host an event on November 1st. The RCD canceled that event in large part, candidly, because of the way the RCD felt that they were treated at the October MCC meeting, and then a lot of the comments that were made about RCD on public forums afterwards. I know at the last meeting there were allegations that the Parks Department forced RCD to cancel it or encouraged RCD to cancel it. Calix Nelson attended a November MCC meeting and made her position really clear about this, that she really just felt that the RCD was attacked unnecessarily and that the forum didn't have an opportunity to be successful. And so that's why the RCD canceled it. Parks had nothing to do with that. But we did feel that in the absence of that forum, we had to create a new forum to share that information. And so that's what the January 31st forum is going to be. And then, I think just the last thing I'd say is I think there's a lot of misconceptions out there and speculation. And so I really would just ask the MCC and encourage the MCC to invite us to answer questions instead of kind of speculate. I know during the last meeting, there were comments about us digging our heel in and that we're not willing to be open-minded. I think people will be pleasantly surprised when, if you're able to attend the January 31st forum, to hear us talk about expanding our notification process, creating an annual IPM report, all things that really were that are being asked for in the letter that the MCC is going to discuss today. So I don't really see us as digging our heel in as much as I think we're trying to be as open-minded as we can be, and we're willing to change certain practices to account for that. And we would have been happy to share that information at any point had we been asked. And the other reason I think we need to have better communication on this is really a complex issue. It's really complicated. I think, for me, one of the simplest forms that shows how complicated it is also in the letter, where the question is, how come we're able to use application of herbicides when the Board of Supervisors adopted a resolution saying no more broadcast spray? The Parks Department doesn't broadcast spray. And I think just such a nuance as to how it's applied can be very complicated and complex, and without having an actual understanding of our practices, I think it's really challenging to advocate for certain types of changes because it's unclear what we're currently doing because the question's never been asked. We're here to share information. That's what the 31st is going to be. We've made ourselves available to the MCC. We'll continue to make ourselves available. But again, as this is a county-wide issue, we do think that individuals who live outside of the Midcoast also have equal rights to participate in the conversation. So hope to see everyone there on the 31st, and we look forward to, I suspect since it's on consent, I'll be receiving that letter, and absolutely look forward to putting a response together for the MCC on that, and look forward to advancing the conversations on this very complex matter.
Nick, thank you for that clarification and for scheduling that session on the end of January. Does anybody on the council have any comments or questions for Nick? Claire does.
Very briefly, thank you, Nick, for trying to clarify all that. That helps.
Yeah.
Also, this will be on Zoom. I presume.
26.
Nicholas,
Yeah,
can you
Claire,
hear-
I can hear you. I think someone else was talking though, so I couldn't understand. I couldn't hear everything.
yeah, I just said thank you for trying to clarify things, and
Yeah.
once again, as I say, lowering the temperature. I just wanted to clarify that the meeting will be on Zoom.
That's correct. Yeah, Claire, thank you for that clarification question. Yeah, this will to make it as easy as possible for everyone to attend and participate. And Claire, can I just comment one more? I appreciate you making the comment about turning the temperature down. I absolutely think that needs to be done. On this is a very complicated topic that people are very passionate about, and I value and respect that passion. But I do think the best way for us to share information, to problem solve, to brainstorm is to turn that temperature down and to be able to have conversations with each other and not at each other. So I appreciate you making that statement.
I appreciate that too. Thank you. I just want to make sure that you understand that part of our problem with the scheduling of this is that if we are not in an MCC meeting when you make this presentation or have this forum, we're somewhat limited as to how we can interact because of the Brown Act. So we need to look at alternatives about how we can participate, if there's a room for us to participate in questioning or talking with you at the forum. So I guess you and the new chair can discuss that, but it is an issue for us.
And Claire, happy to address that right now. Actually, I spoke to Tim Fox, who's the county attorney's office representative who works with the MCC. And so actually the Brown Act would allow for every member of the MCC to not just participate in the meeting or attend the meeting, but also participate, right? Ask questions, share your perspectives. That is not a Brown Act violation. The only reason or the way in which it would become a Brown Act violation, according to Tim, and I'll allow him to give that information to you all directly, is if a majority of the MCC somehow set up a side chat room of that forum where you all were deliberating with each other outside of the public forum. But the Brown Act would actually allow every member of the MCC to not only attend, but also speak without violating it.
Okay, so we should get that clarification from Tim, as I'm sure we will, and that's great of you to anticipate that. Any other, Kimberly, you have a comment from the council.
I just have a quick question for Nicholas. And Nicholas, thank you. I appreciate what you said. One of the requests, which I think is a really important request regarding the pesticides, is the request for more data collection and management of the data, and then reporting of the data. So is that something that will be included in this forum, that sort of type of policy change?
Yeah, sorry, Kimberly, sorry to cut you off there. Yeah, as a result of
Just
the
can't
conversation,
find Bluetooth on here.
as a result of the conversation, as a result of the conversations I've been having have been occurring, and the letter that I fully anticipate receiving, we have decided that, yeah, we're going to release an annual IPM report, and we'll be able to release the specifics of that along with kind of when that would be released every year. We'll be talking about that on the 31st. But yeah, an annual IPM report is something that we are going to start doing, and that did come out of the conversations that are having. So again, Kimberly, not to kind of be redundant in what I'm saying, but I think it's a great example of how we are being open-minded and we're not just digging our heels in and ignoring what people are saying and trying to steamroll a process. We are trying to be collaborative and understanding.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Okay, any other council comments, questions? Seeing none, I turn to Sid Young of Public.
Thank you. And Dan, I don't know how to turn down my microphone. I'm sorry. As far as this meeting goes, Nicholas, I assume since it's countywide, it's going to be in person, and you didn't give a time or a location at this point. Do you have one yet?
We just covered this, Sid. He said it's.
All I heard was people might be able to attend in Zoom, but he didn't say what time it's going to be on the 31st, and he didn't say where the meeting is going to be held. The forum, IPM forum, will be held.
So it's going to be a virtual forum.
Nothing in person.
No.
Okay.
No, it's going to be a virtual forum because that's what's going to make the most sense. So people from throughout the county can participate. And and it'll be on the 31st. And we are targeting 7 p.m., but the specifics will be advertised probably next week.
Okay.
Along with all the necessary kind of scheduling information that you would want.
And then one other question while you're here before you tune out. I attended the Parks meeting, and the new person who's going to be in charge next year said that you would be agendizing the spending of the money for the Midcoast Parks Mitigation Fund, and also past expenditures on an upcoming meeting. And hopefully the sooner the better, since the Board of Supervisors accepted the report, but it wasn't specific as to the dollar amounts that were spent. So hopefully that'll be happening soon. And maybe you can even let the MCC know what money was spent on coastside parks. Okay.
Yeah, Sid, yeah, no, I appreciate it. Although I would, I guess my interpretation of the report, it differs. I think the report is pretty clear on how much was spent, how much remains in the account, and
Yes.
what the money was spent on. So I think it was pretty transparent and clear as to how much was spent in each year, and it was spent for the pump track, and then it also specifies in that report how much remains in that account.
It didn't say what the $100,000 was that was spent this year. So if you could bring that information back, won't ask for it right now. Thanks.
Yep.
Okay, Melinda McNaughton. Melinda, you're muted still. But we know you're here.
Thank you. Sorry, just trying to figure out the buttons here. Okay, yeah. So I just wanted to respond to Nick's comments, and I really appreciate you being open-minded, Nick, and looking at the asks and giving actually some responses to the asks tonight. That's really helpful, and I think that the community will really appreciate it and will attend the IPM forum to discover more about what you're doing. I think the problem was that we didn't communicate very well in the beginning, and at the presentation, you didn't answer any questions. So I think that was probably what people took for, oh, well, maybe they're not responding, and that's because they don't want to even deal with the asks. But, and I also wanted to just say that I feel like our presentation at that meeting was really professional. I don't think anybody that was part of the presentation insulted the RCD in any way. I don't even think we talked about the forum. So that must have been all just what was communicated in the chat or in personal emails that she's getting. And I'd like to say that when the community is upset about something, it's probably because they feel like their family is being threatened in some way. So maybe that it has something to do with it. But and the confusion about glyphosate. So anyway, thank you, Nicholas, for being open and open to communication, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say at the IPM forum. Thank you.
Yeah,
all right.
and sorry, Greg, I just want Melinda, I didn't mean to imply that you or any of the presenters had attacked the RCD. It was members of the public in the chat, and then again on email threads, and I believe if anyone's interested, Greg, I don't know which meeting. I think it was a meeting in November. Kellex came to the RCD and provided a a very clear and articulate explanation as to why the forum was canceled. So I would encourage anyone who's interested to go ahead and watch that. But yeah, I apologize if that was interpreted as saying you, Melinda, or the speakers had done that. That certainly was not my intention.
Okay.
Thank
Nick,
you.
Thanks for coming and getting in front of this issue with us. So I now would ask, are there any other government officials? Harvey, you were here earlier. Did you want to make a comment tonight on behalf of Half Moon
Yeah,
Bay?
briefly. Sure. Okay. The city is working on an emergency communication system that is going to be implemented in the next month. And during emergencies will allow the city, the Public Works Department, the sheriff's office, the fire department, all to communicate, even in the absence of working cell towers. So that's a step in the right direction. And I don't know much of the details except what I just told you. And if anybody's interested, I can find out more. But we really do need that sort of emergency communications during disasters. The other thing that happened at the last city council meeting was that we have approved phase 1 of our climate action and adaptation program. That is how we are intending to try to reduce greenhouse gases. It's a very ambitious program. Right now, it doesn't have a lot of legislation behind it. It's more of an encouragement and outreach. But in the future, we're going to be considering doing legislation that will implement some of these things. But we do believe that greenhouse gas reduction is an incredibly important thing that the city can invest its energy and resources in. And the last part of my presentation is, I don't know if you read, but 2 council members, myself and Debbie Ruddick, received anti-Semitic postcards that were really vulgar and hate-filled. And we believe, but we can't prove, that it's related to the fact that at the last city council meeting, there were 5 remote call-ins that were racist, hate-filled, anti-Semitic, that we cut off immediately. And that may have made us a target. We don't know. But the sheriff's office has been informed. And if this continues, we're going to have to follow up. It's really a sad commentary on what this country has become. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Does the council have questions for Harvey? Seeing none? Augustus, go.
I just wanted to say I'm very troubled and sorry to hear that, Harvey. That's terrible, and I agree that it's shameful to just hear that's happening in this country.
I guess I would just comment, Harvey, that I posted for future discussion and consideration by the MCC the policy that the SAM Sewer Authority just adopted, which includes how to deal with disruption. It's something we can take up next year. Seems a well-formed extension of what you guys are already doing. So we're sensitive to this issue as well. Okay, so without any more council input, I see Melinda, did you still have your hand up? Is this for Harvey or was that for something else?
Oh, it's just something I wanted to add regarding our letter of asks and the tonight, if you're going to be voting on sending a letter of support,
It's on the consent agenda. So what's the proper process here?
It's not on the floor at the moment.
It's not on the floor at the moment, so we'll have to wait, okay?
Okay, I can talk at the consent agenda.
I don't know.
Normally consent stuff just
Makes public comment.
yeah.
At the Board of Supervisors meeting, I just did my comment at the beginning.
All right, Melinda, why don't you go ahead and do it now in case it does pass consent?
Okay, I just wanted to say that I think it would still be good to send a letter of support to, I know it's not going to go to the Board of Supervisors anymore. It'll go to Ray and Nicholas and the the manager of the county. But I think it would be great to still send it since they both already know what's on there, but the manager of the county doesn't. And I think it would be great for just clear communication and everybody to see. And there's one more thing on there. It's a request, actually a couple more things that are very important on there that I won't discuss in detail, but one of them is to create an accountability, it's like an oversight committee, so that holds whoever's tracking the records and the records, it holds it all accountable so that it actually does what it says it's doing. So that was one of the things. So just wanted to throw that out there for you guys to consider. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sid, you had a question for Harvey about Half Moon Bay stuff?
Yes, is he still there?
Yes, he is.
Okay. Now I can't remember. Oh, yes.
We'll come back to you.
Along the cherry stem, there's a big, several chunks of the sidewalk are totally deteriorated up by Surfers Beach, and they have orange cones, and that's the Half Moon Bay side of the highway. I don't think you guys have discussed it at any of your recent meetings, so either I've listened to live or tuned in later on YouTube, but is that something that you guys can put a little pressure on Caltrans to hurry up and fix? Because it's been there since that last January storm.
No, it's been there for about 4 years. You remember when I sent you that first picture?
Well, that's true. It's gotten
Caltrans works slowly. That's all I can say.
I was
Call your
asking
state-
Harvey.
Call your state senator.
Yeah. I was asking Harvey if he-
Was there a question for Harvey, Sid? Because we have a
that
very.
was the question for Harvey, but Dan butted in. So Harvey, has the city, because that's your side of Highway 1 on the cherry stem, are you guys trying to exert any pressure to get Caltrans to look at that, where it could be a trip hazard or a pedestrian, injury?
I will check. That area is very confused because there are multiple jurisdictions, including
Right.
Caltrans. And
Yes.
Caltrans is the least responsible organization I've ever dealt with, but I will
I agree.
try to get it done.
Okay, and
Thank you for
also
following up.
I did listen. I was, as you know, participating last week on your meeting. And I thought the reason there were so many people Zoom bombing and saying disruptive racist remarks because you had the Black Lives Matter thing on your agenda. But I didn't know you guys got the xenophobic postcards. So I'm sorry about that. And I hope you'll be able to follow up and figure out a way to keep those creeps that call in from somewhere hidden in the offline, to keep them from butting into your agenda. Thank you very much.
Okay, so Barbara Matheson, you had your hand up and it disappeared. Are you interested in making a public comment or, for Harvey?
No, I'm public comment.
All right,
Sorry.
thank you. We're going to get to that shortly. Let me just catch up. Were there any other government officials from other entities who wanted to speak about their agency or issues? All right, hearing none, then I will close the Board of Supervisors report and now open public comment and announcements. And we'll begin with you, Barbara. You have to unmute, Barbara, for public comment.
Can you unmute, Barbara? Can you hear us?
I'll tell you what, let's do this.
Okay, yeah, I got it. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I would like to request that the council reconsider item 3C as a consent agenda item and be moved to discussion. The points in your comments are rather weak, and looking at the lighting plan, which is a major concern for the 40 or so neighbors that attended the open house, is completely different from what we were told at that meeting. for you to just sign off on this and look at the plans, you'll see that they are not as they were described to us. So I would like you to move this to either table it or move it to at least discussion, because it's really important that the lighting be correct and we not do a repeat of El Granada. But the lighting plan is totally different than what we were told. Thank you.
All right, Barbara, thank you for that comment. Sid Young,
Thank you. I attended the fire station open house, and the architect did imply there was going to be a lot better lighting than the past in El Granada. So I hope that you will be able to pull this as a consent agenda and put it on the regular agenda for discussion, because I know there's a lot of people in the community here in Moss Beach that are interested in making sure we don't have a repeat of El Granada and have to, you know, beg and plead after the fact when we could really deal with it before the fact. And the bullet point letter that I saw looked kind of, I guess it was insubstantial or weak in that arena.
well,
So,
we'll explain that later when we get to it. Okay.
okay, but hopefully you can take it off consent, and put it
All
up
right.
for public comment at that time.
Eric, do you want to comment?
You know, this is really iffy talking about the consent agenda and that we don't talk about. But basically what's on the consent agenda is a list of topics that the council would like to see addressed when we make a comment from the planning committee to the planning department. This is not a letter. It is not what we're going to send to them. It's a list of the things they want that we plan to address when we do comment. Lighting is one of the things we plan to address. This isn't what we're going to say, but we're asking the consent of the council to say, are these 4 things that you want us to comment on? And is there anything we've missed in terms of a major topic?
Okay, so it's bullet point outline of the topics.
Yes, of the topics. It's not what we're going to say.
Okay, thank you. All right, Crystalline, I'm sorry, did you have a public comment, or did we miss you under government officials?
Oh, it's fine under public comment.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to invite the MCC to participate in the State of the Coastside. We've set the date. It will be January 25th, lunchtime at Mezzaluna Restaurant. And the public will be invited. But I just wanted to extend a formal invitation to the MCC to provide a 10-minute presentation like you've wonderfully done in the past.
Okay, Crystalline, thank you for that opportunity. Steve Terry. Public comment.
Yeah,
Steve.
hi. Yeah, hi. Thanks for letting me speak here. I'm also similarly concerned about the Moss Beach Fire Station 44 comments that they're incomplete and kind of inadequate for the scale of this project. Now, I appreciate Claire's comments earlier that these are just kind of saying we are interested in this and we do want to visit this, but I feel that because it's not really detailed out and it's very lightweight, that it might convey that MCC does not have a genuine interest in the issue, and perhaps its future influence may be diminished or compromised. Like, for example, some of the things that I think should be in this list are, well, as was mentioned before, I haven't seen any response from the open house comments, and I think MCC should insist that those get addressed formally. And then, as far as I know, there's been no public discussion since the plans came out, and I'd like to see that. The published lighting plans are very unclear on what the fixtures will be. I think to make things clear and not avoid the Fire Station 41 disaster, we should have cut sheets available to review. The lighting calls out 4,000 Kelvin for all fixtures. This is very problematic and unnecessary for the type of light they put out. It's kind of unsafe and unhealthy light. I think all the lights should be set at 2,700K or 2,700K or less to be consistent with the community. There's no apparent provision to prevent direct light from shining off the property, as was called out for in FS 41. So we appear to be going backwards, maybe. We should at least have that as a minimum. And related, there's a page on how the lights will illuminate each section of the property, like on the surface. However, there's no plan to measure how much light each fixture shines off the property. This can be easily done with a luminance meter. And I think MCC should insist on that after, again, the FS41 disaster. It shows 5 14-foot light poles around the perimeter of the property. And those could have a severe impact on the nearby community. I didn't know there were going to be lights around the periphery, and they're 14-foot tall. And then there's six sidewalk and entryway lights, and the heights aren't specified, but we don't know if there's going to be like the FS41 lights or what are they? Maybe they'll be bollards this time. And there's a comment about dark sky here in this and these comments, but dark sky really is meaningless, and I think that wording would want to be International Dark Sky Association. That's the proper terminology to be compliant. You want to be compliant with IDA. So anyway, all in all, I feel these comments would be better if they were not published and maybe removed from consideration by the MCC. And that, as was mentioned earlier, the MCC agendized a formal review of the new plans. And I'll post my comments, some of my comments in the
Now, wait a
chat
minute, we're
for
in
convenience.
strange territory here because we're not normally supposed to respond to public comment.
No, but they don't understand what we're doing at all.
Can I ask a clarifying?
Yeah, go ahead. Clarifying
We're
question, Gus.
making a public comment and don't respond.
Gus.
Simple as that.
Gus.
Okay, I'm asking a clarifying. question
Gus
about
wants to ask a
what's
clarifying.
happening.
Right.
Public
This,
comment.
this,
It's public comment.
But on what? On the consent
I'm
agenda,
not
apparently.
responding to public comment. I'm asking a clarifying question about what's happening right now. The, this list is not actually going externally to anyone, correct? Like
Correct.
this
This
list
is
is
for
for
us.
internal use.
We're not
only.
supposed to be
This is
discussing this right
This is
now.
internal use only.
Okay.
We're not supposed to be discussing this. This point in time is for the public to comment and us to listen.
All right.
But they don't know what they're talking about.
Well, I guess we'll have to.
Tell them that with an email.
My request is simply that it be removed from the consent agenda. And I'm not asking for response. I'm just asking that you remove it from the consent agenda and then consider discarding it entirely.
We've heard that comment. All right. Kimberly, why is your hand up?
My hand is up because I have a point of, I don't know if I would call this a point of order, but my understanding is that when you have items on a consent agenda, I know that Pacifica City Council does this and their attorney has advised on it before, that you can actually have the public comment on the consent agenda before you take the vote. So we're a little out of order here because we're mixing public comment with comment specifically on the consent agenda.
Okay, you're
And
right. We are.
I understand that hasn't been our practice, but maybe we should consult with the lawyer to make sure, for the future that we're doing this the correct way.
Okay, well, we certainly appreciate the sentiment expressed in advance of us calling up the consent agenda. So now we have a sense of the community's feedback before we address that topic. All right, I see no further public comment, so I'm closing the public comment. Oh, they're in the room here. Please, go ahead.
Members of the council, thank you for the time to speak. My name is Jordan Moda, and I speak in the capacity of a union officer for CAL FIRE Firefighters Level 2881. CAL FIRE Level 2881 is a labor organization representing more than 8,000 professional firefighters across California, including those here locally in the Coastside Fire District and San Mateo County Fire Department. The men and women of CAL FIRE, both locally and across the state, are trained to the highest standards and are provided with the most up-to-date strategies and tactical knowledge base available today. Our members are outfitted with top-line equipment and apparatus that allow them to perform at a very high level on various types of emergencies, including fire, EMS, and technical rescues. The personnel are held to strict standards. The firefighters of CAL FIRE Level 2881 are among the best and respected by the public and our firefighting peers across the country. I come here tonight to express concern and anger over the letter sent on 12/7 by MCC Council Chairperson Greg Villegas to the Coastside Fire Department, the Coastside Fire Board, County Board of Supervisors, and several others, including and several others regarding the structure fire which occurred on 929 on Alamo Street. The letter sent contains false claims, an inaccurate timeline, including a 20-minute response time, an erroneous series of events, and outright slanderous statements critical of the personnel of the coastside firefighters in the execution of their duties. The letter sent by Mr. Dieguez, identifying himself as the chair of the MCC, makes statements that firefighters perform their tasks incorrectly and inferred that multiple attempts had to be made to accomplish our job. And finally, it makes the assumption that our firefighters' actions are the reason that the house was a total loss. None of these statements are based in fact, and none could be further from the truth of events which transpired that day. Mr. Dieguez, to irresponsibly send this letter to the recipients and audience that you did, and while representing the MCC, can only be perceived as a slanderous attack on our firefighters. I see your agenda tonight includes the election of new officers. I hope the council takes my comments tonight into consideration and you're successful in meeting your stated desired outcome of electing a new leader. Thank you for your time.
Any other comments? Yeah. Go ahead.
So, I'm a little confused about the consent agenda item also. Looking at the matter on the fire department on the consent agenda. Comment now, or do I wait until the consent agenda comes up?
It's public comment, so.
You really shouldn't be commenting on something on the agenda, but since I think we basically.
Yeah, we say you
public
shouldn't be
comment
commenting on stuff that's on the agenda. That's right.
Well, historically, we've never allowed any discussion for the consent agenda. That's the way it's been.
All right, well, so he should be making his comment now then, because we wouldn't know.
Seems reasonable.
So let's allow it.
Seems reasonable.
And actually this from Barbara.
Can I interject for a
Yeah,
moment?
go ahead, Adam. Yeah, point of order.
Yes. Yeah, prior to adopting the consent agenda, you'll need to open that agenda, that item, that motion up for public comment. So that should be the time at which you take public comment on consent agenda items.
So can I move that we consider the consent agenda?
Well, we have to close public comment and then invite you back up, okay?
Yeah, I have another comment.
You have another public comment, unrelated.
Yes. I'm a little concerned about this. And I'm not sure if this is on the consent agenda or where the heck it is, but anyway, I'll make my comment now about filtering or funneling all requests from Midcoast Council or all communications from Midcoast Council, all advice to the Intergovernmental and Public Affairs Unit in the County Executive's Office. Exactly what does that portend?
That's on the agenda too, isn't it?
Yes.
So you can comment on that on the agenda.
Okay.
All right. So that concludes public comment, and we're not allowed to reply to public comment. So we will consider the public comment as closed and now move to the consent agenda. And I am aware we have minutes drafted. Kimberly, do you want to speak to the minutes issue?
Wait, you gotta open the consent agenda.
Oh, we have to open the consent agenda, and I was going to have council comment. Am I doing that
No,
wrong?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as agendized.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Now we have to discuss it.
Are we open?
No, we don't discuss it. We either say vote or we, if somebody pulls it, then we pull something.
Okay, so I'm going to move, based on the feedback I'm hearing, that we pull from the consent agenda the item C, comments from Moss Beach Fire Station, and discuss that at the end of the regular agenda because of the feedback we received tonight. Okay. Now, Kimberly, did you want to make a motion regarding the minutes or other matters?
I would like to, sorry.
If you've moved to reorder the agenda and pull an item, you should take a vote on that motion. And you'll need to take a roll call vote because you have two members attending virtually.
Okay.
But there may be other things being.
Yeah, we may
pulled
be
as
other
well.
things being pulled, so can we wait and take that vote in a minute?
Do them one at a time.
Yes. No, you can bundle them if you have multiple, assuming that it's reasonably anticipated that folks are going to support that.
Okay, I
Yeah,
think
or-
that,
yeah.
all right, thank you for the clarification. Kimberly?
So yes, I would like to pull the minutes of November 29th because there are some inaccuracies that need to be corrected.
Okay, so we had a motion. It was seconded. We now have requests to pull 2 items. So now, if I understand correctly, we take a vote on removing the item C and the minutes for November 29th and approve the rest of the consent agenda. So we're going to revise, we're going to amend that motion.
Can
Right?
I suggest that you do a motion to remove the 2 items from the consent agenda, vote on that, and then
Right, okay.
then you'll have that, and then you can proceed to the consent agenda items. If you have not already opened that portion for public comment, you'll need to do so that people can comment on items that are on the consent agenda.
Well, let me see if I understand this correctly.
And
Well, we're-
so I have a point of order.
Melinda wanted to speak on the, did she?
Point of order?
If we go ahead and approve the consent agenda with the minutes of October 25th, and there is a spelling correction, then I make that correction after the minutes are approved, correct?
A ministerial correction, but in the vein of a spelling error, can be done without pulling the item and having to edit it. You're able to make ministerial small corrections like that without a secondary vote.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Adam.
Okay, so if I understand, we're now going to make a motion to pull the minutes for November 29th and item 3C from the consent agenda. So I make that motion.
Second.
Okay. Can we,
I got a question.
do we have a discussion on this?
Yeah, it's just that never in the past have we ever, in 12 years, have we ever voted on pulling. If a council member wanted it pulled, it would just be pulled, we'd move on. So has something changed, Adam? Were we doing it wrong for 12 years?
I can't really comment on the past practices. We can get some different advice from Council Fox.
Yeah, let's do that.
Maybe at a different meeting, but my suggestion is that you take a motion to remove those items and then proceed with the consent agenda as modified.
Okay, so we
So
take that motion.
Got it. So I'm writing down vote to remove 11/29/23 minutes and item 3C
Right,
of the consent agenda, and you and Claire moved in second.
right.
So let's vote on this.
Okay,
All right, Greg,
yes.
Gus,
Yeah.
Claire,
Yes,
I'm a yes. Dan,
Yes.
yes.
Okay,
So
and Kimberly.
Kimberly and Ann.
Kimberly and Ann. Okay, so that's 7-0 to remove that stuff I just said.
All right, and so now we return to approving the remaining items on the consent agenda. And Adam, per what you're saying, we open that for public comment as
No.
well. No?
Do we?
I think
If you have not already opened public comment on the consent agenda, you need to do so before finally voting.
All right, so now we open public comment on the consent agenda, although we obviously heard a lot of it. And I don't see any new public comment. I think we understand the sense of the community. So I close that public comment and we could proceed with the vote.
And we need a motion.
We
Or we don't-
we just made the
Move
motion.
to approve the consent agenda. What's your name?
Second.
Okay, all right, we're voting. Greg,
Yes.
Gus,
Yes.
Claire,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
Kimberly,
Yes.
that's me, yes, and Dan.
Yes.
Okay, 7-0 to pass what was left.
Right.
Okay. we're
So
done.
now I move to make 2 changes to the minutes of October 25th.
Ministerial changes.
No, we do that later.
We don't need to
Pull
vote
it.
on that.
You mean for the spelling errors?
Yeah, the spelling of the
Let's
names.
pull,
You don't have to do anything, right?
She's already communicated the spelling issues to me and I will correct them.
Okay.
Okay, so now we move into the regular agenda. You all saw the first item being the officer elections. You saw my correspondence with Tim Fox. The difference between this meeting and the one last year was last year we had a whole bunch of new members that we had to swear in. Okay, now we are all members. And so the only refinement is you can call Tim Fox, or we can schedule him to come in January, and you can discuss with him the swearing in of yourself in your new position. Okay, so it doesn't have to happen here, but we do have to, of course, hold the vote. I'm going to suggest we go chair, vice chair, secretary, treasurer in that order, and open the first position for nomination, and that is the position of chair. Do we have nominations for chair?
I nominate Claire.
Okay, I nominate Gus.
Do we need seconds on these?
I don't think we need seconds on the nomination.
No, we do not.
Do we have any other nominations for chair? Okay. Now, Claire, you've done this before. Do we have a open discussion or just call for a vote? What's the polite way of doing this?
I'm not sure.
And make sure that, yeah, there's no further nominations.
There are no
Which
further
I think we
nominations
understood
added,
that.
right?
Okay, very clear on that. Give it a moment to make sure nobody's, fumbling with the keyboard to try to get their hand up. And looks like, now wait, then we take a vote. My understanding.
Other occasions where it's contested and the nominees can speak.
The nominees can speak. Okay, let's have the nominees speak then, give them the opportunity. Claire, you were nominated first.
I really have nothing to say. I don't need to do this. I'm happy to serve the council in any way that I can, but I'm not running.
Okay,
If I could be drafted.
okay, you could be drafted. Gus?
I would be honored to fill the role, so I'm kind of excited about it.
Okay, so you are more than a draftee.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Pick a call for a vote.
Well, I think here's
Dan?
the, yeah, it's just that, we have a relatively young, the majority of the, council is kind of, newer. And, I think it's good to have some leadership that's got some experience. And, has done a good job in the past. Just, kind of moving forward.
Okay.
Short, kind of, yeah, that's my thought. It's important to have, good leadership for everybody, just, for meetings to run smoothly and all that stuff. There's
okay.
could be a lot of problems, a lot of bumps, and then.
I hear you.
Kind of stuff, community may,
Okay.
suffer.
If I could make a comment, I would say that I think we need new leadership. It's a good idea to try new blood. And as you heard from Claire, she's going to be here to support us. So, I mean, I think the idea that Gus is going to take a swing at this and see how we can improve things would be a great idea. All right.
Looks like there's a community.
Do we have public comment on voting for officers?
I guess we do.
Adam, this is new to me.
Well,
Throw it out there to Adam, see what he says about this.
we're representing the community. We should listen to what the community has to say.
Yeah, for each of the regular agenda items, you'll need to open it for public comment.
Okay, so we're opening for public comment on, in this case, the election of Chair Sid Young.
Well, I'm not quite sure where you're headed. It sounds like you're leaning towards Gus, but if you're going to have a runoff or before you vote, maybe you should have each one sort of state what their past history is and what they want to do in the next coming year for the MCC, so that members of the public can find out, who's the best person for the job. that's what I would suggest, but I don't know how you've done it in the past. Thank you.
Okay,
Like
well,
a candidate statement, basically.
we did offer both of them an opportunity to speak, and you heard what they said, so I think we satisfied that. Although I admit it was brief.
Mhm.
Okay, time to vote.
Okay, so I'm gonna see what happens here. Greg, who are you voting for?
Gus,
Okay. Uh, Gus, who are you voting for?
Maybe I guess I'm voting for myself.
Okay, who are you voting for, Claire?
I'm gonna abstain.
You got it. Anne?
Gus,
Anne is voting for Gus. Okay, Kimberly?
I thought a lot about this and I think I'm gonna vote for Gus. And is it okay if I say why I'm voting for Gus?
I'm not gonna write it down.
I would love to hear
Okay,
that.
well, I just want to say that I think that we've all struggled with burnout, and this is a chance to sort of revitalize the council a little. I think that issue is really important, and to have somebody who can tackle this freshly and allow some of the others of us to rest a little is important, to keep all the members of the council on board without losing them. So I appreciate Gus stepping forward, and I much appreciate Claire as well. So I'm voting for Gus.
Got it. I'm gonna vote for Gus. Dan?
Gus, it is.
Okay, so that one's done.
all right. So Claire, thank you for running. Gus, you're our new chair. As we discussed, you're okay with me continuing to handle the rest of this meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, so
I
I will,
appreciate that.
I will fumble along, and then we will discuss going forward. And I will be available to support you doing the same kinds of things in the background I've done before until we arrive with more administrative support from the county or some other approach. So I'll still continue to do what I do with the serve with pleasure of the chair. Okay. Okay, the next position is vice chair. Nominations for vice chair.
Nominate Greg.
Claire nominated me. Other nominations?
Public comment?
Any public comment?
All right,
Hearing
so-
none, hearing none?
All right, Greg? You- how about you?
I'll vote for myself.
Okay, Gus?
Yes, Greg.
Claire?
Greg.
I'm sorry about that. Yeah, Anne?
Greg,
Okay. Kimberly?
Greg,
And I'll vote for Greg and Dan?
Greg.
Okay.
Okay, the next position is secretary. Nominations for secretary.
So I'm gonna nominate Anne.
Any other nominations? Any public comment?
You ready?
Okay, ready to vote?
Greg?
And
Gus?
And
Claire?
Dan.
Okay. You wanna vote for yourself, Anne?
yes.
Kimberly?
yes.
And I'll vote for Anne and Dan?
Yeah, vote for Ann.
Okay.
okay. The last office is treasurer. Nominations for treasurer. I nominate Scott. Other nominations? Hearing none, public comment? Hearing
Let's do it.
none,
Greg?
Scott,
Gus?
Scott.
Claire?
Yes.
Anne?
Scott,
Okay. Kimberly?
Yes.
I'll vote for myself and Dan?
Scott.
Okay. So we got that. We're done.
okay, so the new officers are elected. I wish us all well. The next item on the agenda is item 4B. And Gus, you're the sponsor for this. I don't know what materials. Did I fail to post anything?
No, I just,
There was a staff memo from the county that drew our concern, having to do with publishing, and it's on the website. I guess, lobbying for things in the government. I'm a little unclear on what, go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, well, yeah, what I was, the framing comment I would make is that, first of all, it alarms me that a policy that would affect us and other boards like us seems to have been slipped into the Board of Supervisors consent agenda without any communication of it to any of us who are affected by it. When I saw the email come in from, I think it was Burnett who sent the email, that was, you know, oh, this is news to me, that this is happening. When someone like, or like Carl asked, how is this gonna affect our ability to represent him? I'm like, I don't know, because nobody in the board, nobody in the county government communicated it to us. How are we supposed to answer a question like that? So at the Board of Supervisors meeting yesterday, I went and I commented on their consent agenda and said, I think you need to pull this because none of us who are affected by it know what it is. It's not worded in a way which is super clear to me. It's not clear to me how it does affect our ability to represent our constituents. You know, what I said, you know, I mean, presumably they'll post the video of it soon. I talked at around 9:15 if anybody wants to listen to it, listen to the 2 minutes I gave. But one of the things I said was, I assume it's in your consent agenda because to you, it feels like a minor technical process change. I said, but it doesn't feel like a minor technical process change to us who are affected by it. It doesn't seem to feel like a minor technical process change to the constituents who read it. For that reason, please pull it and, you know, communicate what it, in fact it is, just a benign minor technical process change. Please communicate what it is and why it is that, and then vote on it. And as I understand it, it got pulled. Is that correct?
That's what I was told.
Yeah.
Connie is here from the county to speak on this. Would it be appropriate to let her speak
I would love
to
to hear
framing
that.
the issue?
Yeah.
Connie, can you hear us?
Yes, can you all hear me?
Yes, we
Yeah.
can.
Great. Well,
Pleasure to meet
first
you.
of all, thank you. Thank you for having me tonight. Good night, good evening, everybody. I'm Connie Forrester-Roll. I'm county's chief legislative officer. And I'm happy to provide the background on the item. To answer to the point that was just raised about it being a minor technical process change, that is in fact what this is. Back in 2019, the Board of Supervisors adopted a legislative coordination and advocacy policy that lays out how county departments, county boards and commissions, which as you all know are advisory to the Board of Supervisors, can advance advocacy or legislative positions. In that policy, which I'm happy to provide you with a copy of, and which is also posted on the county's intergovernmental and public affairs unit. You can see a copy of that policy. There is a section that indicates that the way that boards and commissions should operate is that you work with your board liaison. In the case of the MCC, so if MCC wants to take a position on state or federal legislation, what you would need to do would be to communicate your desire to take a position on a bill to your staff liaison. And then that staff member would communicate with me about your desired position. It's my unit's responsibility to then analyze that measure and provide the Board of Supervisors with a recommended position. And so one of my responsibilities on an annual basis is to develop the county's legislative program. That too is posted on the county executive's intergovernmental and public affairs unit website. The board approves that document every year in January. We're currently working on updates, and we do it, I should say, based on the state legislative calendar. So every year, every 2 years, we do a very thorough review of the document and update it in consultation with departments, county boards and commissions, and a variety of other stakeholders. So we're currently working on the updates for the 2024 session, and that document includes both legislative priorities and standing policies at the state and federal levels. So again, I'm happy to provide you with the link to that document, which is approved by the Board of Supervisors every year and is posted on our website. That is our guide on how we lobby in both in Sacramento and in Washington, D.C. And so again, the purpose of this particular action was merely to clarify that process, because there's been some confusion on the part of some of our boards and commissions about what that process was. And so since I've been asked to manage boards and commissions, and County Executive Callaghy asked me to do this about a year and a half ago, I've been trying to work to solidify our processes and our policies. And so this was just a step that I was taking to clarify that process through the standing rules. And as you'll see in the memo that accompanied the resolution, you'll note that that standing rule was developed back in March of 1999 and hadn't been updated, and had most recently been updated in February of 2008. So it'd been a long time. My unit also works on developing guidance for boards and commissions. So we put together the handbook, which is also posted on the county's website for boards and commissions, that also indicates that this is the process to follow. So that's been included in the document. So in any case, the whole point of the action was merely to clarify in our standing rules what our process was. We had communicated this both in those documents and through conversations that I had had both with staff at the Board of Supervisors level and county staff that work directly with boards and commissions. So in any case, I'm happy to answer any questions, and the resolution that adopted the legislative coordination and advocacy policy was passed, like I say, back in 2019. So we've had this policy since then.
So if I could, I'd like to lead off with two use case questions. Okay. My understanding from admittedly maybe a rushed reading was that this policy was designed to allow entities within the county to lobby for the county to take a position on a particular piece of legislation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we have separate use cases here I want to bring up. One is I became aware in August that the state had dropped the Midcoast from the Middle Mile Broadband Initiative. I was having a discussion with a federal representative, and I went ahead and contacted the staffs of Becker, Berman, and Eshu. And we got a letter written, which was signed by Supervisor Mueller. I'm not sure who else from the county, sent it to Governor Newsom, and we got ourselves put back on the map, and the budget changed to fund the Middle Mile Broadband for the county. So one use case question is, was the initiative that I took prohibited? Will it be prohibited under this particular guideline?
Again, it's not a prohibition. What it is an encouragement to work directly with the staff, Supervisor Mueller. So if you worked with the staff of Supervisor Mueller and let them know that this is what you wanted to do, then that's all that this policy encourages, is that you work with your staff liaison. What we don't want is surprises coming from boards and commissions who may be taking positions that are opposite to what the Board of Supervisors would be taking. And again, because boards and commissions are advisory and the Board of Supervisors is the policy-making body, that is why that we wanted to clarify what the process was.
Okay, so in the particular use case in question, Supervisor Mueller signed the letter. So
Yes.
I believe we're covered there. Here's another example from April 12th of this year. The Midcoast Community Council produced a letter support for Bill AB 817 and related efforts. It says, the Midcoast Community Council is writing in support of Bill AB 817, and it goes on. It went to Blanca Pacheco, Mark Berman, Speaker Rendon, Senator Becker, and Supervisor Mueller. Would that be prohibited? We're reflecting the opinion of our constituents on a matter pending in legislation. I don't know what the county's position was, but that's what we did.
Yeah, so that in that particular case, yes, I would say that what should have happened would be for the MCC to again communicate your position to your staff liaison. That would then bring it to my attention, and then I would work with them and with you and the supervisor to develop a position for the board.
Okay,
So if this is the same bill that we're thinking about, the county had already taken a position on that measure, which was to support it.
It could be, and maybe we're happily in agreement, but there
Yes.
could come a time when we're a bit different out here. Our priorities seem to be different than some of the rest of the county. We are chartered to reflect the position of our constituents. So I just would observe that could be an issue here. All right, that's the end of my comments. Now, we have other council comments. Kimberly, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Connie. So I just want to make sure that I understand correctly. When I came on board this past year, I was encouraged to read the handbook, which I did. And it sounds like this is exactly what the handbook says, except for one part, which is that entity that is kind of the in-between, the intergovernmental, I don't remember what it is, but
Yeah,
is that
intergovernmental
the actual
affairs.
only difference?
So that's always been the intermediary. Again, as I say, the Intergovernmental and Public Affairs Unit is really a big, long name for two staff that work with the county lobbying teams in Sacramento and in Washington, D.C., and directly with the county's delegation to advocate on a variety of issues, policies at the state and federal levels. So again, we are the go-between between departments, county boards, and advisory commissions, and the delegations on all of these matters. And as I say, we work very carefully every year to put together the county's legislative program because that really is our roadmap for what to do in Sacramento and Washington, D.C. And again, the aim here is to coordinate so that we're all sort of moving in the same direction. What we don't want is and to encourage you all to work directly with your supervisor on encouraging him to take, to express your positions. It really is up to your supervisor to make that determination.
And so what does happen when we disagree? I mean,
Well,
that's still not clear to me.
I mean that there are sometimes that you may not agree, that he may not agree with your position, and so but again, that sorry, I'm hearing someone talking. Again, the group is an advisory body. I believe that is the way that it was set up in your founding resolution, and so your charge is to communicate your concerns to your supervisor, and your supervisor is your conduit to the entire board, and that's the way it was set up.
Okay, and just also for clarification, this is for legislation only, correct?
Yes, this is for legislation only. And as I say, I'm happy to send you a copy of that policy. And I would also say that, as individuals, you are free to express your opinions as resident, as citizens and residents of the county as individuals. What we're looking at is a letter that communicates on behalf of the county. The Midcoast Community Council would be advocating on behalf of the county. That is the distinction.
So for example, if we had a particular or if our community came to us and said, this is how we feel about this piece of pending legislation, but the supervisor doesn't support what we support. Could we write a strong letter to the supervisor regarding that?
Absolutely. Absolutely, you could. And I would encourage you to speak with him about that too. Because I mean that is his role to listen and to represent your interests as he determines in his role as an elected official.
Okay, and then my last question is, sometimes these things are very timely. And so when something is happening quickly, how would we address a situation like that? I mean, I could see a situation in which things are moving so quickly that by the time we get an answer, it's moot. So how is that handled?
Yeah. So again, one of the great things about the legislative program is that it tries to anticipate what it is that the state legislature or the federal government might be doing in the coming session. And so when we put together that language, we try to be very forward thinking and thoughtful about what it is that we're going to advocate on. And so if there are issues that you all are anticipating you would like for the county to advocate on, lobby on, my suggestion is that you speak with your supervisor about what those would be. If those issues aren't already included in our legislative program, then he would be the person to bring those to my attention for inclusion in the program. And as I say, I'm happy to provide those links to all of these documents that I'm mentioning, but they are on the county's website.
Okay, thank you.
Claire, council member?
I think most of my questions have been answered by your dialogue with the other council members. I have one additional one. Let's say that we have a concern for legislation, because you say this only involves legislation, not any other interaction we may have with other agencies or government entities. Let's say we talk to our supervisor, he agrees with us. He brings it to the Board of Supervisors and they don't agree. Then what?
Well, I would say that, I mean, that is the way that the board is structured. They need to get a certain threshold vote to pass resolutions. And so again, I mean, I think that it's all in how strongly the supervisor feels about this particular issue. But again, I would just remind you that your representative is Supervisor Mueller, and he would be the one person that you would be communicating on. I'm struggling to think about a situation in which a supervisor has brought an issue forward, legislative issue forward, and hasn't gotten support from the other board members. It's a very rare occurrence. So it would need to be a very contentious issue for that to happen.
You may be right if you're talking strictly about a narrow range of legislative proposals, but there certainly have been issues that have come up on the coast side that are of concern to residents here and concern to us, which are not of concern to the Board of Supervisors in general. And if that were to occur around some piece of legislation, would we have any way to express the needs of our community?
Absolutely. As I say, you can express them directly to your supervisor. You can show up at the Board of Supervisors meeting, right? And speak about how strongly you feel about that issue when that item comes up for discussion. So
but not directly with, say, the state legislature.
With the state legislature, no. Again, as I say, this is all in an effort to ensure that the message that is coming from the board is coordinated through the supervisor's office.
Good enough. I have one question
Scott,
too.
yeah.
So in this procedure that you gave us, the number of it, whatever it was, that describes how we're supposed to interact with the Board of Supervisors and legislation up the chain. In that, whatever the document or procedure, whatever you're talking about, does it give us an opportunity to see where our suggestions and requests are moving through the legislature? Is there any publicly visible means for us to say our representative got the message and then at a certain date, and then he gave it to Representative Mueller at a certain date, and then that went to the next level of legislation at a certain date and time? Can we see, is that visible to us? Because there seems like there's more steps in this process than we might be used to.
Well, again, the conduit here would be the staff person that Supervisor Mueller has assigned to represent him at the MCC. I believe it's Mike O'Neill, who has been assigned to this duty. The chair of the commission is free to email me and Mike O'Neill to let us both know that there is an item that you would like to bring, a legislative item that you would like to bring to the supervisor's attention. I will make sure that that is advanced, because if there's a concern that somehow it's not moving on the supervisor's office's side, I can assure you that it will advance if it is brought to my attention. So that is one way to ensure that that happens.
Thanks.
Point of information, it would help us, Connie, if you would paste into the chat the links you're talking about, so they could be a matter of the record and would go out when we post the results of this meeting.
Can just have it, excuse me. I think it would be better if they emailed to the council. That way we have
either way.
Because chat, it's harder.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I would prefer to email it to you, Chair Dieguez, because I think that the chat function is really not intended for this purpose.
Okay. Gus, where are we going?
Yeah, I just wanted to make one last comment before I think we throw it to public comment. Which is that first, Connie, I really appreciate this this conversation. I think it was very illuminating. It helps me feel a lot better about what this change is. And mainly for that reason, I would just suggest that, it would have been great to have this conversation like a week ago, just so that we would know what was happening when that showed up on the board's consent agenda. But I appreciate you explaining it now.
To that point, let me start by saying that I apologize if there was any confusion. I have spoken to the supervisor about this process. He is aware of it. I've also spoken to his staff on numerous occasions about this process, and he is aware of it. And Chair Dieguez, I believe you and I have also had conversations about this process several times, and so I, probably made an incorrect assumption that everyone was aware of it. And as I say, this to us was a minor technical cleanup that we're trying to do in bringing our policies to the 21st century, really, because it has been a very long time since they were reviewed and updated. And so that has been my mission, is to ensure that everything is current and that the information is communicated to the chairs and the staff that are working directly with all boards and commissions. And if the board does approve this policy, I can assure you that my unit will follow up with information to all of our county boards, commissions, councils, and committees.
Awesome.
We have public comment.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have public comment here. Carl May.
I accept what was just said as a clarification. I would note that a lot of what we were hearing was a verbal assurance from county official. These assurances need to be nailed down. What I see in this, and maybe it's existed for a while or not, is a number of places where there's going to be filtering potentially of what the Midcoast Council says. As the supervisor or the supervisor's representative represents us, will they be allowed to summarize? Or can we be assured that verbatim what the Midcoast Council comes up with will be forwarded? I'm thinking over how long has the Midcoast Council been around? A wide spectrum of supervisors in the past, some of which have been fine, some of which have actually tried to kill the Midcoast Council at different times. And the verbal assurances and so forth are not helpful. The council was set, Midcoast Council was set up to advise the Board of Supervisors. And now we're getting potentially some filtering as to what the entire Board of Supervisors gets. And Connie, sorry by calling you by your first name, but is not a person I'd worry about. Her verbal assurances and so forth. How long is she going to be in her job? You know, how long is she going to be around to assure us that timely items will be forwarded quickly? These things are not minor as far as having the coast side have a say in its own governance.
Okay. Len, you wanted to make public comment? We're taking the audience first for those who are remote.
Thank you. Len Erickson from Granada. I had a chance to read the full resolution document, and there were 3 or 4 items listed besides legislation. Do you have something, Gus, that will tell us what to do? I don't remember.
I don't know. I have
including things like budget, for example.
right. I don't have the list.
I pointed out that the short form of it, this 3 items that were on the resolution.
Okay. Thank you.
You know what they are, Connie?
Sorry, I'm going through the document right now as you are speaking.
It's been listed 2 or 3 other things.
So the discussion memo. which is
Suppose
not-
it says support or oppose pending legislation, so you're talking about the resolution or the memo?
The resolution.
The resolution's different, yeah.
Okay, that's not the resolution.
So here it is. To facilitate consistent and coordinated Board of Supervisors approve support or opposition to any pending federal, state, and local legislation, budget proposal, or other policy on behalf of San Mateo County. So that's what's on the screen right now. So that's your point. It's more than just legislation, budgets or policies. Okay, so you're making the point that it's broader than, okay. Now we have public comment from remote attendees. Sid Young.
Thank you, Connie. I just wanted to know, because I guess the Coastal Commission technically is Sacramento, and sometimes our community, I'm sorry, gets more involved with Coastal Commission issues. But you're saying that no matter whether it's Sacramento or a federal legislation that's being proposed, that you want to have our supervisor kind of filter what we are advocating for. Is that my understanding? Hello?
What I'm saying, yes, what I'm saying is that if you have any issues that you want to raise with the Coastal Commission, that those concerns need to be raised with the supervisor's office. That is what I'm saying.
Thank you.
Okay, Burnett.
We got me. Okay, I just wanted to say agree with both comments that the beginning and the second comments that Gus made. In first looking at the consent agenda when this item was put up, it made perfect sense to me that, okay, for legislation, everybody be on board and so on. But then as Len brought up, when you read the actual resolution, it seems broader than that when it's talking about budget and whatever the heck other policy means. So it seemed to be broader. Then there was also a comment in there about a step-by-step guide as to what the steps needed to be followed that was not provided with the details with the resolution. So there was no way for anybody to look at that, at least in looking at what was presented by the board as part of the resolution. So I hope that there is a link somewhere so that we can see what the step-by-step guide is as to what it requires, so that we get a little better understanding. But also the other point to consider in all this is that the officials on the getting some feedback somewhere. Anyway, the officials on the council are elected, not appointed. So they are an advisory committee or council, but they are elected to the position, not appointed. Thank you.
Okay, other public comment. Just for the record, what was posted on the MCC website was a copy of the staff memo and the resolution, 2 separate links, but it may have appeared as one to a casual reader. It was just one thing. All right. So now we've heard from the public.
Kimberly's got her hand
Yeah,
up.
well, she's in the council. So what do you want to do? Take council discussion?
Yeah, if Kimberly's got something to say.
All right, Kimberly, go ahead.
Well, I'm a little disturbed because I actually didn't look at the resolution sentence that was pointed out. And I guess, Connie, I don't really understand if the handbook says that it's legislation only, and then you're saying that if we weigh in on a decision that the Coastal Commission has to make, that's considered formal legislation that we can't comment on. Is that what you're saying?
No, what I said was that you needed to, my suggestion is that you speak with your supervisor about that issue.
And when the supervisor has a different position, then we're not allowed to make a public comment at a Coastal Commission meeting on something that we disagree with him about?
Again, the issue is if you speak as the MCC, that's the distinction that I would make. As individuals, right, you're allowed to do that. But if you're going to be making a statement related to the county supports this or the county opposes that, right, that is the issue. The MCC is a regulatory body, which is slightly different animal than let's say a bill is. And so I mean that is something I think that might fall outside of this issue. And so I would need to talk to the county attorney's office about that. So let me consider that separately.
I would want that to be very clear because I think as an elected body representing our community, if we are making a public comment as the MCC, even if it differs from our supervisor's position on something, that seems to me like, we're not commenting on a bill. I think that makes sense that we should be able to do that. And I don't feel that should be included in this particular thing. And that's not how I interpreted what the handbook currently says. And I'm disappointed that the supervisor, who I see has joined us,
and let me just clarify too that budget
Wait,
proposals.
Hold on. So to be clear, I have not had a hand in drafting this policy, and I've joined in to sort of listen to understand it be explained. So there's no reason to say you're disappointed in the supervisor. I'm learning about this too with you right now to understand it. I also, at some point, have brought up, have something for Mr. Dieguez, which is another reason why I came to join you all this evening. So, but I didn't mean to interrupt you, Connie. I am learning about this for the first time. I think it is good to really have it explained, but I do also think it's going to be helpful to sort of understand, as I'm learning these expectations too, as a new supervisor, what the interaction is. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to Connie.
Thank you, Supervisor Mueller. I was just going to also say that budget proposals are actually legislation. And so the budget, the state budget is a budget bill. So that's why that is included in there.
Okay, so then what you will get back to us on is, or to present clarifying language on, is that issue of commenting on particular issues that might affect the coast side. For instance, things related to sea level rise, which won't affect other parts of the county, but which we as an elected body might comment on at a coastal commission meeting or some other body like the Harbor Commission or you know, other boards and commissions that we might make comments at.
Sure. I'm happy to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just throw in there, if I understand this correctly, the intent of this change is to eliminate the possibility of surprises about where our stands might be on something relative to where the county's is. So, you know, I would just want to say, you know, as I guess the newly elected chair or whatever, I am absolutely fully committed to the idea that there should never be any surprises about where we are on things. And Supervisor Mueller, I will certainly do everything possible in my own power to make sure that you always know exactly where we stand on something, so that you will never be surprised by anything, even if at some point down the line, maybe your position on something is a little different from our communities here. I promise it will not be a surprise.
Yeah, I mean, and what I'd suggest is that we try to meet, and I try to meet on a bi-weekly basis to make sure that doesn't happen.
Right.
You know, I think where this really starts to become an issue that I could foresee is if there isn't a collective action by your body, and there's individual reach outs from a subcommittee or things like that to put forth a policy position that could be confusing from the entity, as opposed to whether or not an entity speaking on behalf of the county or the advisory. We are well acquainted with the different roles here. I think the different agencies that are interacting with the county may not be, and so they don't know what weight to ascribe, whether or not that's coming from the actual county in their interaction with it. And so I think that's the difficulty that staff's trying to assess, is because oftentimes the staff's interaction too, you got to remember there's grants and all sorts of different funding that's being tied up in those communications with those agencies. And so I think I sort of understand what the intent is here to try to make clear, but I think it's going to be really important that we have that bi-weekly communication, and that actions are taken on behalf of the commission, of the council, excuse me, so that it's very clear what the council is asking for. We get it. I understand that. The county understands that, and then it's clearly, and then if there is an interaction with another agency under this policy, that the agency understands exactly what the council's role is with respect to the county.
Makes perfect sense to me.
Do we have further discussion on this item? Gus, are you satisfied with the agenda?
And there's just one last piece to really remember too, is that I understand in this paradigm I interact with you as your supervisor. Always remember that I have to get 2 other votes at least on the county board before what I want to have happen. So there's that added layer that happens here, where the commission, that if the commission is interacting with one of these agencies and the county has a position different than the commission, that may not be mine, and I may have lost a vote, and there might be three of my colleagues on the board who feel differently, but that is the policy of the county. And so that's also a paradigm I think they're trying to figure out how to respect in that process.
Len, you wanted to make another comment?
I want to relate 2 experiences that relate to this. As chair of the board in the past, I've been at meetings where the board has discussed and put together letters, and then have the occasion, let's say, the planning commission to speak to that. Sometimes that letter is unanimous, or sometimes it might be split. And the chair sort of has the view to say, this is what the MCC has decided to discuss. That's the framework of it. If an individual speaks, they're supposed to say, I'm a member of the MCC, but speaking as an individual. So the chair does have that position to do it. The second was I was involved in terms of looking at opportunities for funding for the multimodal parallel trail. I talked with Michael Neal, and he put me in touch with Anna Eshu's local chief of staff, and she put me in touch with someone in Anna's staff to discuss funding opportunities there. So I pursued that actively because I happened to be in Washington DC on the trip and met with the staff member. There was some blowback on that because basically there is a process of budget review that operates at the county level and is somewhat insulated from the rest of the staff that doesn't want people going to the congresswoman's office to discuss things if it hasn't passed through that review. So when I saw the budget part of that, I did think of that instantly as well.
Thank you, Glenn. Claire?
I just want to quickly say that this whole conversation, not just tonight, but leading up to this, has been fairly tense. And there've been a lot of apprehensive feelings that people have had, probably on both sides. If I'm hearing tonight that this is mostly about trying to clarify communications so that everybody knows what everybody else is doing, and so that we can make coordinated statements and efforts and work together, I'm all in favor of it. I think the biggest, most important piece of what's coming out of this tonight is ongoing, direct, detailed contact between Ray and Gus. And if that takes place and is really reliable, I think it'll eliminate almost all the need for apprehension about this particular piece of this thing that is being proposed to the Board of Supervisors. I think we can probably work with it. I think it's the question of we don't want to be surprised and you don't want to be surprised. But if we can keep the communication going, I think we'll probably be okay.
You want to close this?
Yeah, I think we're good.
All right, we're going to close this agenda item. The next agenda item is an update on transportation issues from Len Erickson. Len, I noticed on receipt of emails from you.
Sure. Can I
bring them up and put them on the screen?
Ray wants to say something, I think.
Supervisor wants to say.
Oh, Supervisor
Sorry,
Mueller.
attention.
Sorry, Ray.
Yeah, I'm so sorry to interrupt your meeting. Just real quickly, I don't know if it was announced, but the Assistant County Executive Adam Ely is here. I have talked with the county manager. We will be having beyond someone from my office attending. The county will also have another person attending these meetings from now to help with the interaction between the county and the Midcoast Council. I had a chance to explain this to Greg earlier today, but sometimes what I've discovered as being the supervisor is that sometimes I understand the council wants to have a direct interaction with the county and maintain some information going back and forth. As the supervisor, that can be a difficult position because sometimes we need to relay information that is the county's position that is not yet our position. So it creates as we're trying to do our policy work, it creates an oddness to it at times, and also for that direct, and so that we're never in a situation of telephone, and because there are other committees and councils that have that direct county interaction, the North Fair Oaks Council to be exact, that has that. We are endeavoring to bring that to this committee. So I think that level of communication will also be helpful, and I wanted to share that with you this evening. Secondarily to that, I come this evening bearing gifts to Greg Diegues as chair of the Midcoast Council, and I apologize, I'm not Greg. I had the certificate with me today when we met, and unfortunately I didn't give it to you because we were so busy talking. I don't know if you could see it because it looks like my blocker is.
No problem.
But it's an appreciation of all of your work this year. at the council, and we are very grateful for it. And it has borne fruit for the Midcoast and for the county, and we are stronger for it. And so I wanted to I'm sorry to interrupt your meeting. I've been making the rounds, but I wanted to make sure that I was able to come this evening and to thank you personally on the record in front of everyone, so that they could also express and see that gratitude to you, which I'm sure if they haven't yet, they will. So thank you on behalf of the county.
Thank you, Rick. Claire, did you have a comment?
Yes, Ray, I wanted to ask you, you were just talking about I'm not really sure what you were talking about. We have this new gentleman who attended our meeting tonight, and I'm not really sure where he came from or what his role is. And there's talk about we're going to be in some relationship with the Office of Community Affairs. I don't know what to make of all this. I don't understand it. I really wish that it could take some time, maybe not right this minute, but before all this is a fait accompli, and explain to us what's going on and how it affects us. Because we don't really know the implications of what the things that you're offering us are.
Well, I was able to meet with Greg today and talk with him about that, and I'm happy to explain more. But basically, it's good news. It's a county staff member to work directly with the commission, and so that is I hope you would see that as a positive. It's something actually I think that was a request that had come from the from the council, not commission, from the council, and it was something that Greg had asked me for as well. So this is the county actually giving specific resources for a staff person to interact with the council.
And is that staff person the man that was here tonight?
No, Adam is actually Adam is actually Adam is a bigwig at the county. Adam is an assistant county executive. He is he works directly for Mike Callaghy and manages many projects at the county. And so it was it was to have both him and Connie here at the same time is quite a bit of power, person power at the county. So I'm grateful for them both joining us to be able to explain this. And Adam's here to watch because he's going to be integral in making the decision who that staff member is who's going to be with you to make sure that you're well served.
Is our staff person that'll be working with us going to be still connected with your office? Is it replacing Michael?
No,
how does it all work?
We will still have a person from my office as well who will be interacting with you, and I will continue to be meeting with the president. But at that same time, we'll have that staff member as well, because as I was explaining, sometimes there's an awkwardness in that there are requests coming from the commission that my staff and I may be wanting to work on or pursue policy on, but the county may not be there yet or trying to figure out how to address it. We are not always we do not always have the same message to share with the council. And so for that reason, and also just because of because of the some of that staff work associated with it, that the county has, that we'll be able to get you answers to questions faster. So I think this is the best way to serve the council.
Thank you. That helps.
Can we conclude this agenda item?
Yeah, I think we can.
Okay.
Thank you, Ray. I really appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
The next agenda item is an update from Len. And Len, I do have emails from you and I can put something on the screen.
Yeah, there's just there was one document.
Okay, I got 2 copies of it maybe?
Just 2 copies because I was having trouble.
Okay, but it's the same thing and I'll put it on share screen.
And all the council members should have received it.
Okay, so can people see this? Do I need to do something to magnify it?
There you go. That's about as good as you're going to get.
All right. Go ahead, Len.
Okay, at the start of the council year, with many new people coming onto the council, and I in particular had a long involvement with transportation issues. I put myself in a position to be a coordinator and advisor on those issues. That process was somewhat active up to about June of this year, and then basically other issues sort of took precedence, so really haven't talked too much about it except an occasional comment. So I wanted to review some current items. I'm going to do this more for information to the council. I could take any questions here, but it could be going forward as you assign responsibilities that you provide assistance. At this point, I don't want to be an initiator of contact, but there are a number of people I know that you have enough direct contact with. So where you want to know it, I'd be happy to put you in touch with people, and I'll mention some of those here. So basically, on the multi-asset rehabilitation project, that project and all of its glory has been submitted to the county for permitting. I believe Mike Scheller will probably handle it. We've not yet received any communications about it, but that's in the wings, waiting to happen. The Moss Beach Corridor project, I know we all attended, were aware of what was done there, and that was trying to weave together a number of different threads. At the end of that project, it was mentioned that the project initiation document was complete and gone in for sign off with Caltrans. So I got in touch with two people there, the manager for long range planning and the primary planner, Chanda Singh, and they communicated back that the project initiation document has gone into Caltrans as in process. Once signed off, they'll share it with the public. And then we supported a request for funding for phase 2, and that has been successful, and so we'll hear announcements about that. There's been a project on transportation demand management. I put its link here in our webpage. I won't go further into it, but it's interesting to try to figure out what it's about. At Surfers Beach, we've been in touch with Cheryl Sutherland. She's the office chief division maintenance, and asked her about the problems at Surfers Beach that have been mentioned here. The communication from here, and I'll just read it. We are currently going through the process of obtaining information from our contractor for the stairs at Surfers Beach. We hope that this work will begin in the first half of 2024. This also involves review of the geotech report and doing other maintenance work there as well. The bottom line is they begin to look at it. They've talked with contractors, but that work will not begin until the first half of 2024. So all the items you've mentioned were bundled together there. Then at Surfers Beach itself, the ongoing longer-term damage there is covered under the framework of the agreement between Caltrans and the Coastal Commission. And basically the work that's put the armoring in place, as well as the paved trail there, is part of received a permanent, temporary coastal development permit. It's a 10-year program that needs review in 2025, and I've been staying in touch with Caltrans to understand how that goes forward. So I received basically a communication. I'll read it here. The Surfers Beach CDP of a specific condition that requires Caltrans to find a long-term solution, and it cites where that is in the document. The initial 10-year period is up in June 2025. We want to start developing a long-term strategy for this corridor and need to start somewhere. So Caltrans is developing a feasibility planning study for the area. We are calling it for now Surfers Beach Long-Term Planning and Feasibility Study. And this is within a framework of they can make a 5-year extension for that project, for that area. So we can look to that to be something like a 5-year project to do it. Now, if you look at the work that's being done on the Moss Beach corridor, you can see that Caltrans, when it gets into complicated issues like that 5 years is a standard kind of framework for it. That being said, we look at the storms that have come, both to create temporary maintenance and these longer term ones. So I believe it would be good to have more complete communication with Caltrans about that. But that's really the communication with Caltrans, I believe, more probably goes through our supervisor to do it. But you could certainly encourage that in a formal letter or something like that. I think we may also know that there's an effort to move sand from inside the harbor out to the Surfers Beach area, sand replenishment, and that's basically going into effect next year. I think certainly Caltrans and others hope it will have some effect on the erosion driven by the wave action, and it's something we should keep close track of. On the multimodal parallel trail, after phase 1 was complete this year, And because it was one of the 4 priority items in Connect the Coastline when they published it in 2022, I expected things to go forward on further activity there, and nothing has happened yet. I've just reached out to the planners to see if there is, but that's where that seems right now. The Cypress Point project is in process. It's the long review is being taken to review all the public comment, but it should be coming back in early 2024. And it has been sort of a gate, that is the county's action on that, to further transportation action in that area. So we have to wait for that. GCSD is working on a project for community park and the recreation center. And that project is basically adjacent to the Caltrans right of way. And the Caltrans right of way is an open area that may well be used in part for what's coming forward with the Caltrans project for Highway 1. So I would encourage the people who have responsibility there to make more active communication, both with the planner and with GCSD and the project. So just wanted to put those forward. But basically, what I'm thinking as a supportive member of the public, happy to help people make communications, but not really working actively anymore.
Len, I appreciate that you put in this extra effort. I think the council can see the depth and breadth of the community, of the transportation issues that historically the council's dealt with. And, you know, we really.
The other thing for the council to remember is these time periods extend beyond, you know, the term of office even of individual people.
Right.
And they do take that long.
Yeah. So, well, thank you for your service and help.
I have a question.
Sure. Any questions?
Yeah, so, in regards to what you just said about the Surface Beach and the, Granada Park, looking at a picture of it right there. What you're telling me is that you have no knowledge of any, plans that Caltrans has with that land.
No, they explicitly at the start, they talked about some level of interaction and collaboration, both with Caltrans and the multimodal parallel trail. And basically, they've kept their work entirely in the property they own there. At the boundary of that property and the Caltrans right of way, the Caltrans right of way is Caltrans property. It was used for the first phase of the multimodal parallel trail, but no further action has been done there yet. I've been pushing for action for 2 reasons. One is I think it's important. So let me finish. It's important to have action on planning the parallel trail. And in that area, as they work on the long-term approach for the whole area, I think it needs to have presence.
So you're saying we're looking at that picture right there, people viewers at home can't, see it. We're talking about yeah, what is not Highway 1 today is where they're parking on the side of the road. And looks like it's approximately, what is it, about 50 feet. I think the marker is where the skate ramp is right now.
Yeah.
The edge of the Highway 1 to the skate ramp from the whole stretch is Caltrans property.
Right.
And you're saying that that is kind of a place marker for the parallel trail?
No, it's a potential opportunity for the parallel trail. The county is.
Nothing official has been discussed about it or planned. You've been, you said that you've been pushing. Asking them.
Well,
can you give us some, how define pushing?
I've been bringing it to the county. You can decide whether you want to push. That is.
No, but what have you been doing? My question.
I've just been getting informed about it and asking if anything has happened. I asked, was there any effort to get funding for it?
With your meetings with Caltrans?
What's that?
With your meetings with Caltrans, asking.
No, well, Caltrans people, all they say is it's the Caltrans right away. They allow it to be used for things, but.
All right.
They don't budget it.
Thank you. I think the point here is that this is now on the council to move this forward.
It's Caltrans property.
I'm just saying, Len has done his bit. Okay, he'll be glad to support, but somebody on the council is going to have to take the leadership, pushing this string.
For example, phase one was finished. That work was initiated by a letter from the director of parks in about 2013. So that was a pushing action for it. Caltrans agreed to let the right of way be used for it, but the expense and the management of it was and is handled by the county.
Okay,
Yeah.
any other questions for Len? We conclude
I
this
have-
agenda item.
I have-
We have public comment. Oh, we
Wait,
do.
wait.
Claire has question.
Hey, I don't have a question, but I want to express my gratitude for Len's many, many hours of service to this and appreciate it very much.
We have another question from Sid Young. I don't know if it's for you, Len, so can you hold on? We have a.
It's for Lynn.
Okay,
I
go
just
ahead.
wanted to know it's not necessarily coast side, it's kind of like mid-coast, but did you in any of your conversations find out when the heck they're gonna finish filling up that sinkhole and opening Highway 92 up completely again?
No, I didn't talk about how we do it all.
Okay, thank you. Nobody seems to have.
Okay, Len, thanks very much. All right, so the next item on the agenda is the item we pulled from consent, which I would ask Claire to lead. It is the comments on the Moss Beach Fire Station. Now, you heard from a fire person earlier in the meeting that I have caused some consternation, and so I'm going to make a statement for the public record that I did not author the comments that the board is considering. Okay, and I am going to recuse myself from this discussion, and I'm going to abstain on any vote, so that my opinions bear nothing to do with what the council does here, and this is solely an action of the council without my input. Okay, thank you.
First, it probably would have been better if this had not been under consent, because it didn't give us a chance to explain what we were doing. What this list of bullet points of things to be addressed in the comments to the planning department, what this is about is, for those who don't know, the MCC gets copies of all referrals of planning projects in the Midcoast, and we comment on them. There's a standing committee of the MCC that makes comments. If they are extremely extensive comments, we bring them to the council as a whole. We write a formal letter. We maybe do a hearing. We do some really detailed analysis. Most of the things that we send to the planning commission or the planning department are either no comment or they're limited comments. Ann, Dan, and I met on this particular referral. We are already late on this referral. They asked for our comments by December 8th. I asked for an extension into next year. I got no response. I'm assuming that they're still accepting our comments because they haven't taken it to the planning commission yet. So I think we're in good shape, but we are late. What we wanted to have feedback from the council was what areas should be addressed in this comment that we send back to the planning commission. This is a routine ministerial type of function that this small group forms on behalf of the council. Council all gets copies of what we send to the planning commission or the planning department. So we said that there were 4 main topics that we wanted to comment on. We did not suggest agendizing a letter, partly because it's such a tight schedule tonight, partly because it seemed like the areas that we needed to comment on were fairly well defined, and partly because we have a tight schedule in terms of getting back to them, and we couldn't really afford to take another 6 weeks to get everything formalized. So what we wanted to get was feedback from the council about these 4 areas that we wanted to make comments about. The 4 areas that we wanted to comment about were safe and efficient access of fire trucks from the station, need for clear lighting standards, aesthetics, and construction and demolition criteria. This is not what we're going to send them. These are the areas that we wanted to comment on. And we wanted to find out from the other people on the council, are there other areas that we should also be commenting on? We may want to send this thing that we need to send directly to the planning department in the next few days. And also in January, come back and do a more full-blown big letter that also comes from the entire council. But we don't really have time for that right now because of the pressures that they're putting on us. So we wanted to get something off to them, and we wanted to see what areas people wanted to address. So that's all we really wanted, was to know, is there anything else besides these 4 things that need to be addressed?
Yeah, can I add something?
Sure.
Okay, so the most important part here is that fire district, planning department have not given us complete information. Specifically on the lighting. They also have not made a summary of what the community has already expressed to them as concerns. So the other council members here that did not go to the meeting, they have no idea. Therefore, it should be the responsibility of the fire district to publish. These are the concerns that we have heard from our community, and these are the mitigation measures, what we're gonna do. That's reasonable, in my opinion. So I think we're just, you know, a little ahead. And I really don't want to have any piecemeal communications. You know, one communication sent, and then who knows what happens. You know, they may not read them all. They may get mixed up.
Oh, they do.
Pardon?
They do. They're part of a formal letter. I mean,
Yeah,
formal
so
record of the
it
case.
is always a possibility when you have several different messages that they get mixed up and misunderstood, confusion. So for that reason, I think we should table this. We haven't had a full discussion with the community, allowed to speak about their concerns. I was at the open house meeting, and I heard some things said at that meeting that appear to be completely different intent of what we're seeing on the drawings. So there's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of concern right now. I feel that we shouldn't take any steps except plan to have an agenda item and have it fully discussed with the community. And continue to ask for, you know, we really shouldn't have that agenda item until we have all the complete information that we're asking for. We don't have the interior lighting plans. There's information missing on the exterior. We don't have cut sheets. You know, they give some catalog number, and you try to look it up, and you know, you're just not sure exactly what they're intending to put there. And so we need this information so that we can all, as a council, comment intelligently, know what we're commenting about. So I'd like to see that, and we don't do any communications until we get all the information and have a full discussion.
Part of the process of commenting on these things when we first get them is that it gives us an opportunity to ask questions, and it's part of the whole planning process. It's in my opinion, I'm happy not to comment at all if that's what the council decides to do, but this is that part of the whole planning process, is to tell them, here's our initial impression, and we may have more things to follow, and we certainly have more questions. I think it's a mistake not to say anything.
Yeah, I disagree. I called the planner today, left a message to try to get some of this information. Did not get a response back. Maybe I'll get a response tomorrow. But some of this information, yeah, I just learned a couple days ago. So everything's changing. Everything's changing in the past few days, and I think we just need time to do it right.
Can I ask you one quick question, Claire?
Yeah, Ann's got her hand up too, and she's part of this process.
Okay.
Too. But you can, whichever.
Okay. Go ahead, Ann.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was going to say, when we first received the letter to offer our comments, we were offered the chance to extend beyond December 8th. However, no one seemed to follow up. And Claire specifically asked for an extension, and I think it would be useful for us to ask once again and to ask them to please reply as to what date the comments need to be given. And I do agree that there is more information. Even myself, I was reassured about the lighting that they're talking about it meeting dark sky requirements, but yet that's not what the planning documents show. So I think there are more concerns. What the community was told at the meeting does not seem to be exactly what we're seeing in the plans. So I think it would be very helpful to put this as an agenda item in, perhaps one of the soonest ones in the new year, should we be given an extension. And so I'm hoping that they will extend our comments, but I do think it's important that we give comments rather than no comments at all. I think it's important to make our point of view known. And I think giving specifics, as many of the comments were made this evening about some of the light fixtures, as far as the brightness, I think all of that should be included in our comments. So I was just going to say, if we can put this on the agenda, I think it probably would be the best thing for us to do so that we do get public involvement and also just confirmation of that extension. But I would not, I'm just more concerned about not putting any comments at all. I think it's important that we let them know what the community is feeling at this time. Thank you.
You had
So, yeah, so when are the documents that you received and you're looking at, are those engineering drawings that the contractor is going to follow exactly?
I think it varies. Sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't.
Okay, because I just wondered if a contractor doesn't meet the engineering drawings and an inspector comes in and looks and sees what's done, he will not approve it, right?
Well, then you're in the building permit phase.
Right.
And we're not involved in the building permit phases. We're only involved in planning.
Okay.
This is preliminary information that they're giving us. It's incomplete.
Sure, this is
So
not
they're not-
engineering drawings, it's just a picture.
No,
Right?
it's not conceptual,
what you built to.
it's in between conceptual and actually, go ahead and, here, we've hired a contractor to build it. It's in between that. It's not conceptual.
Okay.
They've actually have detailed drawings. Have you looked at the drawings?
No,
Okay,
but I know about building things. You
Sure.
don't do it exactly as the engineering drawing, they just want to.
but we're not at that point. We're not at that point yet.
Okay,
We're reviewing the, they haven't received the permit to build yet. So
Okay.
they're looking at it. They have to, I think they have to get a coastal development permit. And so planning department is, they have to check all the boxes in order to provide them. So we're looking at this project in a little bit more, a bit more detail than when Gary Burke came here, what was it, about 9 months ago, and he kind of gave just kind of a very conceptual.
I just don't know how like a public project would work as opposed to something private where the most important thing is the final drawings, and they can do whatever they want until that's been approved, right? So I just wondered, like, we're getting involved in a process that they could just do whatever they want after, right?
No, I don't think that's the process.
Yeah, I don't think it's quite that.
Okay.
So what I'm hearing is that it would be a good idea to agendize this. People generally would like to see this agendized and looked at in more detail sometime in January. Is that the sense of the council?
Do you need us to vote on a preliminary letter?
No, I don't think, no, we don't need a vote. We're good. Unless the council directs us not to comment at this time. The role of the planning subcommittee is to comment, and we will comment.
Okay.
But And we can vote on that. I know you disagree.
I've talked to, you know, a lot of people about this and, including, one of the neighbors. And, he agrees that, this idea of piecemealing incomplete messages. You heard, earlier, a lot of the community members, have a concern with this. Yeah, I think there's already, it started out, there's a lot of confusion. I just don't want to add to more confusion. I don't think it would be a good idea for the community and, or the council.
Does the council agree that we would like to agendize a formal study of and letter on this?
I think you should proceed the way you're doing it. And keep
do
in
that
mind,
also.
I don't know if you can see this, but Kimberly, as a council member, has her hand raised, and then Sid Young is going to have a public comment.
One, should we let Kimberly?
Yes.
She hasn't said anything.
Yeah, go.
I just wanted to say that I don't think I mean, we don't want to add to confusion, but at the same time, I think that, you know, I agree with Anne that we do need to weigh in and weigh in early and set an expectation on behalf of the community for what we'd like to see. And when we had Dr. Travis Longcore come and give us that thing about lighting, one of the things that he emphasized is that you really have to get out in front of the process and start early, because if you wait till it gets down the road, it's unlikely that you'll be able to make changes. So I kind of feel like, you know, we should be out there commenting and setting an expectation for what we'd like to see and what the community wants, because this has been a huge issue for the previous, the fire station that we already have on the other side in El Granada. And, you know, I'd like to see this one handled a little differently. So while I understand, Dan, your comments about sort of making sure that we understand everything well, I'm also cognizant of the fact that often these things, you know, the train leaves the station and then we're left at the last minute trying to comment on something that we can't change. So this is an opportunity to get out in front of it early, and to keep, you know, putting forward what the community would like to see in this fire station.
You guys are running this discussion. I'm confused on this.
I hear what Dan's saying about multiple communications and the potential confusion that would cause. But correct me if I'm wrong, we don't know that our deadline actually has been extended.
We do not know that.
Okay, so we also have a risk that if we don't comment now and we agendize this for January, it turns out that we've, like, literally they've closed it. It doesn't matter what we say in January. We'll not have the opportunity to comment at all at that point. And that, to me, if they have not confirmed that they're willing to take a later comment, that seems like a pretty big risk to me.
I've been told we have the ability to comment. We will have, they can't not accept our comments.
Well, I mean,
I've been told that.
Can I interject to maybe help a little bit?
Yeah.
Whenever the item would go to the planning commission, you would have an opportunity to comment. You may also, I can certainly reach out and get a direct answer for the new chair tomorrow on when the comment period closes. One option you do have is you could either vote as a group to say, in the event that the comment period is going to close before your next scheduled meeting, you would present these preliminary comments to the planning department. The other option is that you could authorize the subcommittee to present preliminary comments that they've developed or continue to develop just on behalf of the subcommittee. So it would not be on behalf of the entire committee, because they would not have had the opportunity to review them. I think those are probably your two best bets. But no matter what, when the item ultimately goes before the planning committee, you'll have an opportunity to present comments there at the latest.
Okay. So I mean, that's what I just heard there sounded good in the sense of, I mean, if you get back to us in the next couple of days with a confirmation of what the deadline for our comments actually is, then we can, I would be fine with a plan that says, if the deadline is actually going to be extended and we can have an agendized discussion about this that's still in time to meet the deadline, let's do that, because that addresses Dan's concern about fewer communications and allows us to have a deeper discussion about the issue. But then if it turns out the deadline isn't going to be extended, then let's absolutely get the preliminary comments out the door now, and then we'll put on one of our later agendas to have the deeper discussion, so that when it later comes before the planning commission, we can come do our deeper comments then. We do it that way. Does that make sense to?
Do we need to vote on them?
Well, actually, Gus, I just want to interject. I would like to make more specific comments than what we have right now. And I think the subcommittee can put that together if allowed, in the event that we cannot agendize this. I think it would be nice for us, especially the information on the lighting, especially the Calvins, and give more specific guidance towards the lighting. I think that would be important, rather than just this very brief number of comments. I know.
I would be fine with, like, if we don't have an extended deadline, I'd be fine with the subcommittee. Like, I mean, do what you do, like you're deep in the details of it. I would trust your opinion on what the comments should be. My hope is that the deadline is extended late enough that we can actually have a full agendized discussion with the whole council. That would be, if that makes sense.
First of all, I think it's a request by date, not necessarily a deadline. I don't know, we've been throwing around deadline language, but I also is there any resistance to having this open to the public and actually having an agenda item so that the community can come and give comments?
I don't think there's any resistance to that.
That's the hope.
So there's no resistance. So
No.
The community has asked for it. They've asked me to ask you for it. Why don't we just plan on that?
I think there will definitely be an agendized discussion of it. The only issue is there a deadline that happens before we have another meeting? And if so, is it fine? Is everybody okay with the subcommittee issuing some preliminary comments so that we meet that deadline, and then we have the full agendized discussion later?
Point of information, the normal MCC meetings in January would be on the 10th and 24th.
Okay.
I want to vote on this as quickly as possible. I just want to be done, but Sid has a question.
It's okay. So why don't we start here in the room? So Len,
Just a quick question. When you started this, Ray, your comments talking about the earlier speaker, and the way you phrased it, it looks like you were talking about the letter you wrote that's under 5.
That's not really part of this.
I know that's
discussion.
I'm actually Greg, because he recused himself. I don't understand. I understand it for 5, but I don't understand why you're recusing from this one, and why you've even brought up what's part of the agenda item 5 in this discussion.
I'm recusing myself because I want the comments the MCC makes to be free of any perception of any malfeasance or inaccuracies I might have provided in prior communications.
It has nothing to do with this, but
it has to do with the fire guy coming.
Okay.
Okay, and complaining about my comments. So I don't want to taint the discussion by being part of it, and I haven't been.
Yeah. Carl?
If a comment is being made, if a more general comment letter is to be forwarded by the committee at this time and so forth, I have a couple of suggestions for content that isn't in that list that was on the agenda for tonight. The first one would be the details that have been presented to us so far in the drawings and what have you are inadequate to make legitimate comments at this time. Those details are central. They're essential to making a comment by this board. My second comment would be in this letter that the deadline is unrealistic. Given the absence of details, given the need to comment even on what details are missing, the deadline is inadequate, and the deadline is also inadequate because members of the community cannot comment on these various details. Lighting is just one of them.
And then Sid, you want to go?
Yes, I do. First of all, I did go in person to the presentation at the fire station. It was many months ago, and they didn't give us any handouts. There was some nice PowerPoint presentation. It looked pretty good, but there are issues that I think the community shares. And it was well attended, but I did not see that many MCC members there. And I don't know who's on the committee. I know I saw Dan and Ann, but who's ever writing the letter should be somebody who's at least been there in person. Secondly, I think the CFPD does have one more meeting this month on the 27th. So maybe you should write a letter to them saying that we want more details, and could someone come and present to us, like the architect that was at that open house. It seems to me that that would be the best way to let the whole public be informed, the ones that weren't able to go to the open house way back many months ago. And last, I would just like to make one note on the bullet points that you have sketched out, and that is that construction traffic, that's a very narrow road there. And if they're building the fire station, you know, what about all the construction traffic? It happens to be one block up from where the Mid-Penn road might be entering and coming and going. So I think, you know, we don't even know if Mid-Penn's ever going to get built, but it's a possibility they could be bumping into each other on construction traffic, depending on when these things go. I fully support the fire board, and we are lucky to have CAL FIRE, because the original union that they wanted to try to bring back would have cost us millions and millions of extra dollars. I don't know if Dan mentioned this, but the CAL FIRE contract that we have has enabled the community to save so much money that we're paying cash for that station remodel, and we paid all cash for the El Granada, so we didn't have to take out a community bond. So we should support our firefighters and not try to stall the project, but I do absolutely think we need to have a public review via the MCC. And unfortunately, unless you guys want to have one more meeting this month, maybe you should just write a quick letter to Gary Burke or Chief Cox at CAL FIRE, Coastside Fire Protection District, and ask for the plan, you know, to have a presentation as soon as possible in January. Thank you.
Yeah, right now we're working with the planning department.
I realize that, but how are you gonna get the planning department to come and make a presentation when
No,
the
it's
Fire
the
Protection
planning
District
department's
is?
job to gather the information.
Okay, well, I'm just
Planning
making a
department
suggestion.
contacted us.
I'm making a suggestion. You don't have to take it. You can send your little bullet points off to planning if you want, but you might want to involve CAL FIRE.
Awesome. Thank you, Sid. We got Steve. Steve?
Yes, hello, everyone. Thanks for opening comment to this, for this issue. I have a few comments I want to make. One is, Kimberly commented about getting out in front, and I think that's great. That's a great advice. Of course, we do want to get out in front. I would stand opposed to releasing this document as something that we want to put out there, because I think we want to try to have. I think we want to try to have a more formal review of everything and avoid the confusion. I'm on the less confusion side, but I do recognize getting out in front. Scott, you commented about like what's on the, like we don't really have the plan. Well, we have a set of plans, but is that what's going to get implemented? And there's always some difference. Of course, there's a difference. The plans we just saw have a lighting, one page of a lighting plan, I think is actually duplicated, but it doesn't really give a lot of detail. And so I think there's a lot of stuff that's left for who knows how it'll get implemented. We saw this with 41, where what got implemented was nothing like what was required to be implemented as far as the lighting is concerned. And furthermore, when it got to that part, it was that building. And so from the supervisor on down, not Supervisor Muller, previous supervisor on down, director of planning and building, the project planner and the fire board, they were all extremely obstinate about applying the required standards that were put into that project as far as light shining off the property. So I think, and that means we really have to get out in front of this, and the project has to have extra level of detail and assurance to the community that we're not going to run the same movie all over again. And as far as Claire's comment about this may be communicated to the planning department, these comments here before us, then I think there needs to be more. If you're going to go ahead and do that, and I get the sense from this council that there is that incentive to go ahead and do that, I think we should put a few more things into it. And I would propose the comments I put in the chat that you would put those in there also. One thing includes the term dark sky, which should say International Dark Sky, but International Dark Sky Association. I would propose that you make a motion to include my comments in the chat into this letter, bullet point number 2.
Steve, actually, I want to clarify, this was never intended to be sent to anybody the way it was written.
Okay.
And everything that you proposed to include, we were planning to include.
Okay, that sounds very good. I'm sorry, I thought you said something about this thing could go to the planning department or something like that. Thanks for your clarification, Claire.
Yeah, I've heard that you said it's not going to the planning department, then I hear you say it is going to the planning department. I've heard it kind of go back and forth.
The little thing that was attached to the agenda was not going to be written per se to the planning department. Those were the points we were going to address. We're going to write more things about each one of those things.
Just to synthesize it, the document that we were looking at was just a list of here are the buckets.
Yeah.
Right? Like access, aesthetics, construction process, and whatever the lighting.
Right.
Like 4 buckets. So the only thing we were trying to decide today is, are those the right buckets?
Right.
Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Awesome.
But it's not complete. And
Well,
that's my concern.
Well, it's not completely, we're only trying to decide what the buckets are. Nobody's trying to nobody was suggesting that this was a list of what's in each of those buckets. It's just, here are the categories. It's like a list of categories was all it was.
Okay, that's one way.
That's correct.
That's one way to look at it, but yeah, it needs a lot of work.
It was never a document.
I know, but I think it's okay. So
great.
The plan is
okay. Yeah. So now we have to decide what we're actually doing. It's like right. I think one thing we need is the confirmation of what the deadline is, which I understand we could maybe get the next day or two. That's what I think I heard from Adam.
So we just agree the next step is to agendize and then have a full discussion? I mean, isn't that simple?
There's definitely going to be an agendized discussion, I think, unless there's
Like at the
objection to
next
that.
meeting.
Definitely
Next
going to be
time
an
we talk
agendized
about it.
discussion. There is also a contingency of, if we have to say something before that meeting, are we okay with the subcommittee running with that and putting out there something that gets us in under the deadline?
That's a
That
backup.
could be-
How can you not like a backup plan?
Yeah.
It's the backup plan.
Yeah.
If we can't do it, here's the backup plan.
But it's just the in case of emergency break glass plan. Yes. That's all
Right.
that is.
I get it.
Okay,
but,
great.
everybody realizes that that would be outside of the communities.
Yes, but if the
Years.
deadline is the deadline, we don't.
I
control
don't
the
think
deadline.
there is, I've already been told there is no deadline.
I'm hoping you're right, Dan. I'm just saying, I learn anything, I don't trust that that's, like that. I would just rather have a backup plan in case that turns out not to be true.
Can we vote on this and just call the backup plan?
Yeah.
And use Adam's comments earlier
Okay.
as the how we define this?
Yeah.
And we can go back to the trend.
Okay,
see
so
exactly what it said.
I would move that we have an agendized discussion on the details of this thing
Sounds
at,
good.
at one of our.
Kimberly wants to
Okay,
speak
yes,
too.
sorry, Kimberly, yeah.
No, I just wanted to clarify something. So there are two subgroups here. There's me, Claire, and Ann who routinely review the planning requests that come to the MCC. And then there's the separate fire station subgroup, which I think, if I understand correctly, is Ann, Claire, and Dan. So I thought that this was a request that came to us from planning asking for our comments. Is that not the case?
That's the case.
So that's a normal process that we go through. It's not unusual.
Exactly. But we also wanted to make sure that the council didn't want to make this a bigger deal than just making a comment. And they do want to make it a bigger deal. So that'll happen. But
okay, that's
I think,
clear then.
Yeah.
Okay, so can we move that there will be an agendized discussion about this topic in detail at one of our 2 January meetings? And if it turns out there is a deadline that is before the January 10th meeting, then the subcommittee of Claire and Dan and and Ann will issue preliminary comments in advance of our agendized meeting. Is that a reasonable motion?
Yes,
I
and
second
those comments will include requesting the information that we need.
Awesome.
It's not on these drawings.
Absolutely trust you,
Okay.
Dan, Claire
Yes.
and Ann to handle it.
We need to vote on this?
Yeah, I think we need to.
I don't think so.
Do we not need to vote on it? Are we just agreeing to agendize it?
I
That's
mean-
all we have to do? Do we need to
What are we
vote?
voting? What would
I'll
we vote?
vote.
Plan.
It was on the consent agenda, so I believe that some vote is required.
Yeah, so let's.
All right, I'm ready. Go ahead, Ann. You're the secretary. Let's vote.
All right. So let's start. I'll start with Gus,
Yes.
Claire,
Just to be clear, we're not sending the message, and if we find out we have to, we go with the backup.
Yes.
Right.
That's,
Okay.
that's done. Yep. Okay, yes, I'm a yes.
okay, and Claire,
I'm a yes, and I just finished writing to the planner right now to tell him we're doing this and inviting him to like, formally extend the deadline again.
I'm a yes.
thank you. All right, that's Scott, and then we have Dan,
Yes,
Kimberly,
Yes.
myself is a yes, and Greg is abstaining.
I'm abstaining.
Correct. Thank you. Okay. That concludes the vote.
Thank you.
Okay. So we move on to council member activity, invite people to make comments on their activity. And then I'll do so at the end.
I've been meeting with the age-friendly people who also are gonna be here in January. And we are, on our healthcare subcommittee, we are working with great promise at developing some facilities for getting blood work and other lab work done actually on the coast side, instead of having to go over the hill someplace to get that done. So that's pretty good.
I've been following up. I'm just catching up 1 minute. That's what my activity's been.
Spoke to the Board of Supervisors, but that's I think all I've got.
Okay, I'll just mention that I attached a sample meeting policy for us to consider in the future. Sam has what looks to be a good one. It builds on top of what I've seen Half Bay do. And Scott has created draft minutes for May 17th and September 20th. Now, what I did that has caused trouble is I sent out an email. You may remember I published a draft of this email a meeting or so ago. And I was trying to get a collaborative planning process with the fire department about the risks involving Cypress Point. That's where this started back in August. I'll skip all the details, but when I wrote the email, I included written comments received from witnesses at the fire at Catherine's house as punctuating what I saw as a risk. CAL FIRE and CFPD are saying those comments are inaccurate and they're very upset with it. So I failed in my objective of getting a collaborative planning process. Okay. And that's all I'll say. Okay. So I apologize for the difficulty I might have caused the council in working with CFPD on this matter. But that's what I did. Question?
I've never seen the chair do something like that with that distribution and call himself the chair. He doesn't say individual like that.
Okay.
I'd like to thank the officers from last year for everything they've done. It's been a long, hard year in some ways. And despite the current topic, I think everybody's done the best they can. And I think we've actually come a long way.
I think Greg's awesome. I do too. Yeah, I think it's been awesome. He's an awesome leader. It's just really good. I mean, because we don't have to do anything. We're doing this for free. And he's let us, and it's just, I think it's great.
Government's hard. There's like no way you're ever gonna do it.
Yeah.
Like without eventually causing a kerfuffle here or there. It's like, there's no chance that's you're gonna get away with that because of that. I can't wait to see what kerfuffle I start.
I just wanted to give my 2 cents and say that I think that what happened with Greg was a misunderstanding.
Right.
It was not his intent.
Right.
And I just want to thank you, Greg, for every single thing you've done, the hours and hours you've put in, and everything you do for the council. I wouldn't even be on the council if it wasn't for you. So I just want to thank you very much.
Well, I'm glad you're on the council.
Thank you.
So as a past chair, I haven't seen any chair have to take on such an enormous job with little background from the whole council. And really, takes enormous initiative to do it. So I support the comments people are making about it.
Sid Young has a comment.
Yes, and I didn't see your letter, but I was aware that the general manager of MWSD was upset with whatever was in that letter. So, and you at that meeting, our MWSD meeting, said that once you found out what was incorrect about what you'd written in the letter, that you were going to send out a retraction or a correction. So I do hope that happens, because there was some discussion at our meeting about the fact that you thought the fire hydrants didn't have the right flow or pressure, and why weren't we testing them? And actually that's all CAL FIRE's responsibility, but they don't test them regularly. So I don't know what your letter said. I'm just saying that if there's anything that needs to be retracted, I hope you will do so. Thank you.
I certainly will. The particular concern Clemens had initially was about the use of the word pressure, which is incorrect. Montera Water and Sanitary District has very good pressure throughout the system. The correct technical term is fire flow, which is pressure over time. Okay, so that I use the word pressure, and in one place in the letter, I use fire flow in others, but I wasn't consistent. But that's not what has upset CAL FIRE. In my opinion, it's the reporting that I passed on from the witnesses of the fire that has caused most of the problem. I think that's fair to say.
Is that right? Because they couldn't locate the fire hydrant near Catherine's house? That's what upset them?
I'm not going to
Okay,
comment
never mind.
in public
Got it.
anymore. then, because I wasn't there. Burnett?
Since we're getting to the end of the meeting and it is the last meeting of the year, I just wanted to thank everyone for all their hard work and to wish everybody happy holidays.
Thanks. Thanks, Burnett.
Thanks, Burnett. We'll be in touch.
Ditto.
I have listed some future agendas. Gus, this is up to you. We should discuss how we're going to do the future agenda setting after the meeting. I see no further business. Do we have a adjournment by acclamation?
Wasn't there a minute that got pulled that didn't get addressed?
The minutes of November 29th were pulled. Good point. Kimberly, are you going to have time to make the changes you think are required?
That's a good point. Is there anyone else who would be able to read? I can try, but as you know, this past week I failed. I'm just overwhelmed with.
But we don't know, you know what you want changed. You have to communicate that to us and we'll do it if you want that.
It's easy to say, but finding the time right now, my father is fresh out of the hospital and I'm caring for him, and it's taking all my
And
time.
I'll talk to Ann and we'll set a time and I'll show her what exactly the process that I have done, and then we'll look at that and see if we can see what you're. Oh, we don't know what the error is. We don't know what the errors are you're talking about. You know,
I will try to take a look at them this weekend.
Okay.
But if I find that I'm not going to have time beyond this weekend, then I will let you know, and you can take an alternative route to revise. How's that?
Okay. If you
I just don't want it to slip off the table and then.
And if you just want to highlight in yellow, I'll just delete it. If it's an error, I will remove it and it will no longer exist in the document. Okay.
Okay. Well, give me till Sunday and we'll see. And thank you, Anne. And thank you, Greg. I didn't say that before, but I'm very appreciative of all the work that you've done. So thanks. Everyone.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks, Greg. I know you did a lot over the years, and you know, it's not a job for everybody.
Okay. And now do we have any further business, or
Fran's got her hand up over there.
And thanks everybody else for all your work, and happy holidays.
Fran?
You know.
Yes,
you.
hi. I just want to repeat that. Thank you all for all your hard work. I know it seems thankless, but you're all doing a great job. And thank you, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Go on and add
Thanks,
to buy some eggnog.
Yes.
I still can't get the procedure right. We don't call for a vote of adjournment. What are the words we use?
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Yeah.
Anybody, any objections? No objections. We are by acclamation. We're adjourned.
Bye.